Chapter 177. Tang Ye's display of might was not bad. This also made Du Guangzhong and the others truly understand what Chu Xiu meant by having his subordinates compete fairly. If everyone was on the same starting point, they might not be able to compete with the assassins from the Blue Dragon Society. These people were simply born to kill. Chen Gongtai was dead, and the other cultivators from the Heavenly Feathers sect had either been killed or fled. They were no longer a threat. Chu Xiu waved his hand and said, "I heard that the Black Cliff Hall isn't far from here." "That's good. Leave a portion of you to collect the assets of the Heavenly Feathers sect. The rest, follow me to the Black Cliff Hall." Chu Xiu had destroyed 2 sects in a single day. Du Guangzhong found it hard to accept his shocking speed. However, after seeing the killing methods of the cultivators from the Blue Dragon Society, Du Guangzhong couldn't help but shake his head. These people were really sharp. The cultivators from the Guangzhong torture room weren't weak either. There wasn't much of a difference in strength between those in the same realm. However, their combat strength was slightly weaker than their opponents, especially when it came to killing. More than half of the cultivators from the Heavenly Feathers sect had been killed by the assassins from the Blue Dragon Society. The Heavenly Feathers sect wasn't in the city, but the Black Cliff Hall was. The reason why Black Cliff City was called Black Cliff City was because it produced a type of stone that was as black as ink. After being polished, it was like a mirror and was a good material for building palaces. By the time Chu Xiu arrived at the Black Cliff Hall, Do Weihu already knew that the Heavenly Feathers sect had been destroyed. There were so many disciples in the Heavenly Feathers sect, but not all of them had the courage to face death calmly. Some of the cultivators had already fled when Chu Xiu made his move. Black Cliff City wasn't far from the Heavenly Feathers sect, so Do Weihu had already received the news. After receiving the news, Do Weihu's first reaction was to flee. Although Do Weihu looked like a boorish man, he was actually more calculative than anyone else. For example, at the Luo family's gathering, he kept saying that Chu Xiu was up to no good and that he would never wait for him to attend the banquet. However, when the time came, he came earlier than anyone else. Seeing that things weren't looking good, Do Weihu's first thought was to escape. However, before he could escape, Chu Xiu had already annihilated the Divine Feathers sect. Without any hesitation, Chu Xiu went straight to Do Weihu's door and blocked him at the entrance of the hall. Seeing that he could not escape, Do Weihu immediately put on a flattering smile and brought his men out to welcome him. "Official Chu, I've thought it through. Your previous suggestion is definitely a good thing for the martial arts community in Jianghu Prefecture. I don't know if others will agree to it, but from now on, my Black Boulder Hall will definitely follow Official Chu's lead." Of course, a person like Do Weihu could not speak the truth. Right now, all he wanted was to survive under Chu Xiu's hands. As long as he had enough time, he could unite all the martial arts community forces in Jianghu Prefecture together and oppose Chu Xiu. When the torture hall's headquarters were alerted, Chu Xiu would still be in for a beating. Looking at Do Weihu, Chu Xiu's lips curled into a strange smile. It seemed to be mocking and disdainful at the same time. "Do Weihu, do you think there's any point in playing these little tricks? You refused to drink when I offered you a toast. Now, go down and drink the guillotine wine." Chu Xiu did not need to waste any effort to guess whether Do Weihu was telling the truth or not. In any case, he was only here today to kill. Do Weihu's expression suddenly changed. He hurriedly said, "Official Chu, wait. Wait. Listen to me." However, at this time, Chu Xiu did not seem to hear him at all. He only said to the person behind him, "Broken sword, I'll leave this person to you." Yan Bugui nodded and walked out expressionlessly. He took the heavy sword from behind his back. With a step, Yan Bugui's figure rushed out. All the gang energy in his body was concentrated on the sword, emitting a misty luster. However, he did not release it. The crowd could only hear the sound of the air exploding. The aura of Yan Bugui's sword was as if it could split a mountain. It was incomparably explosive. Dou Weihu cursed in his heart. It seemed that this Chu Xiu really wanted to kill him. He had no way to block Yan Bugui's heavy and powerful sword. The aura that was like Mount Tai was coming at him. No matter how strong his physical body was, it was impossible for him to withstand this sword. Hence, gang energy erupted under Dou Weihu's feet. He subconsciously wanted to escape. But right at this moment, the stellar energy on Yan Bugui's giant sword suddenly erupted. The grayish stellar energy was incomparably viscous, and it directly imprisoned Dou Weihu's figure within it, causing his movements to come to an abrupt halt. Just this pause was enough for the sword to come smashing down. A sword could be used to slash or stab, but the heavy sword in Yan Bugui's hand was used to smash. The heavy sword had no edge. It was a skillful sword. The huge sword came smashing down like a heavy hammer. Dou Weihu's expression suddenly changed. Since he could not dodge it, he could only take it head-on. Dou Weihu formed a fist seal in front of him. He did not have a weapon because he mainly cultivated his physical body. His fists were his strongest weapons. A pale golden gang energy suddenly exploded and crashed onto the body of Yan Bugui's sword. However, it did not cause any effect. It was like a clay ox entering the sea. Dou Weihu's eyes suddenly revealed a trace of fear. However, in the next moment, he was directly sent flying by Yan Bugui's sword. In an instant, both his arms were broken and his golden body was shattered. Blood blossomed in midair. Seeing this scene, Chu Xiu could not help but shake his head. Letting Yan Bugui make a move was too much of a bully. Facing Dou Weihu, Yan Bugui could completely suppress him. Although Dou Weihu had only made one move, Chu Xiu could see that his opponent's horizontal golden body was indeed very strong in terms of physical cultivation. Excluding the gang energy, just in terms of the defense of the weapon, it was second only to Chu Xiu's Duguin. It must be known that Chu Xiu's Duguin was one of the fast and slow 9 words formulas. It consumed a huge amount of qi and could not be maintained for a long period of time. However, Dou Weihu's horizontal golden body could be used at any time. He did not need a weapon because his physical body was comparable to a precious weapon. It was a pity that his opponent was Yan Bugui. Yan Bugui's huge sword was also a precious weapon. However, his huge sword was only superior in terms of weight and material. It did not have any special powers. It did not even have a sharp edge. It completely relied on brute force to smash people. Under such a powerful force, even if his body was really made of iron, he would still be smashed into pieces. Moreover, his horizontal golden body had not reached its peak yet. His internal organs were still fragile flesh and blood. Yan Bugui's face was expressionless as he wielded his sword. His sword stance was extremely simple, but when combined with his strange internal force, it allowed him to unleash his strength to the extreme. His opponent could only face it head-on, and not even have the chance to dodge. With both arms crippled, Dou Weihu struggled to escape. In the end, he could not escape from Yan Bugui's heavy sword. After a few moves, he was smashed into a pile of minced meat by Yan Bugui's sword. With Tangya as an example, although the faces of the people present were still a little pale, they had somewhat adapted to the situation. Especially the people of the Blue Dragon Society. Almost all of them had the experience of carrying out missions with Yan Bugui. They knew that as long as Yan Bugui made a move, there was an 80 to 90% chance that his opponent would be smashed into minced meat. At this moment, with Dou Weihu dead, the remaining members of the Black Rock Hall no longer had any thoughts of resisting. They were either killed or fled. As usual, Chu Xiu ordered his men to gather some cultivation resources and valuables from the Black Rock Hall. At this moment, Du Guangzhong walked over with a worried expression and said, "My lord, our current situation is not very optimistic. We have destroyed 2 clans in a row. I reckon that the news has already spread." It is already too late for us to destroy a third clan. Chu Xiu asked in reply, who said that I want to destroy a third clan? Du Guangzhong was stunned. If we don't continue to attack, won't we be in trouble when the sects of the Jian province prefecture join forces? Chu Xiu said indifferently, it's just killing the chicken to warn the monkey. If we kill all the chickens, what will we eat? You stay here and continue to deal with it. I will bring a few people to the Luo clan. Du Guangzhong nodded his head in confusion. Until now, he still did not understand what Chu Xiu was trying to do. The Jian province prefecture was not big, but it was not small either. One day was enough for the news to spread all over the Jian province prefecture. In fact, Chu Xiu had only used half a day to destroy the Heavenly Feathers sect and the Black Rock Hall. However, it was enough for the news to spread to more than half of the Jian province prefecture. At this moment, in the Luo clan patriarch was dumbfounded when he heard the news from the clan disciples. Back in the Phoenix Pavilion, the Jian province prefecture patriarch had humiliated Chu Xiu. None of them had agreed to Chu Xiu's conditions. Based on the Luo clan patriarch's analysis of Chu Xiu's character, this matter would definitely not end so easily. However, the Luo clan patriarch had never imagined that Chu Xiu would act so crazily. Out of control. This is simply lawless. Other than these 4 words, the Luo clan patriarch could not think of any other words to describe Chu Xiu. There were rules in the Guangzhong torture room. However, Chu Xiu had completely disregarded the rules. Was he not afraid of blowing things up and bringing it to the main hall? In the past, Wei Jiuduan had openly covered up for Chu Xiu to destroy the Jiang clan. This was something that all the martial artists in the Jian province prefecture knew. However, that was just the Jiang clan. With Wei Jiuduan's authority, he could easily suppress it. However, if Chu Xiu forced the entire Jian province prefecture to rebel, even Wei Jiuduan would not be able to suppress it. At this moment, the Luo clan disciples suddenly knocked on the door and entered. Patriarch. Chu Xiu has brought people here. The Luo clan patriarch glared at the disciple and exuded a cold aura. What exactly is Chu Xiu trying to do? Not only did he destroy the Heavenly Feathers sect and the Black Rock Hall, he also wants to destroy my Luo clan? Does he really think that the martial artists in the Jian province prefecture are all soft persimmons that he can bully at will? The disciple had a strange expression. Patriarch, this Chu Xiu does not seem to be here to make a move. He only brought 3 people with him and did not make a move directly. They are still waiting in the meeting hall. Chapter 178. Hearing that Chu Xiu had only brought 3 people with him, the Luo family's patriarch was a little surprised. Just a few people wouldn't be enough to wipe out the Luo family. What was Chu Xiu's intention in coming here? When the Luo family's patriarch arrived at the meeting hall, he saw Chu Xiu still leisurely sipping his tea. The Luo family's patriarch couldn't help but say coldly, "Official Chu, you sure are ruthless. My Jianzhou prefecture's forces didn't agree to your conditions, so you wiped them out. You're so overbearing and lawless. Do you still have any respect for the Guangzhong torture room's rules?" Chu Xiu said indifferently, "Old Master Luo, you've been in Guangzhong for so many years. Don't you know what the Guangzhong torture room's rules are? Only things that benefit the Guangzhong torture room will be handled according to the Guangzhong torture room's rules. What I'm doing now doesn't harm the Guangzhong torture room's interests. Also, Old Master Luo, there's one thing you said that's very true. I, Chu Xiu, am lawless. In the Jianzhou prefecture, my words are the law, the heavens." The Luo family's patriarch was so angry that he laughed. "Arrogant. Chu Xiu, do you really think that no one can deal with you? Today, you wiped out the Heavenly Feathers sect in Black Cliff Hall. You've already placed a knife on the necks of the Jianzhou prefecture's forces. You can wipe out 1 or 2 forces, but can you wipe out more than 10 of us? Chu Xiu looked at the Luo family's patriarch and said coldly, "Old Master Luo, you should know why I chose the Heavenly Feathers sect in Black Cliff Hall. Those two idiots didn't watch their mouths and slandered me, Chu Xiu, in public. Others might not know, but do you think you don't?" The Luo family's patriarch's heart skipped a beat when he heard Chu Xiu's words. Their conversation that day had probably spread. At the same time, he was cursing in his heart. After this incident, he would definitely get rid of those disciples and servants in the family and make them watch their mouths. Those patriarchs and sect masters who had participated in the meeting would not be so idiotic as to spread the news of their conversation. The only people who could have leaked the news were the servants of the Luo clan. Chu Xiu leaned back in his chair and said indifferently, "Actually, I'm a very tolerant person sometimes. Even if that Qinggong Tai and Do Weihu spoke ill of me behind my back, I didn't flare up in the restaurant, right? I gave them a chance, and we could have become friends and partners. Unfortunately, they didn't cherish this opportunity. They refused a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit, so don't blame me for being ruthless." The Luo clan's ancestor stared straight at Chu Xiu and said coldly, "Then why have you come to my Luo clan? What are you trying to do?" Chu Xiu stood up and met the Luo clan's ancestor's gaze. He said, "Old Master Luo, you should know what I'm trying to do. I've already said it very clearly in the Phoenix Cry restaurant. If everyone cooperates, it will be a win-win situation. Unfortunately, you all rejected me at that time. Old Master Luo, you are a smart person and know how to choose. Although the Luo clan's strength in the Jianghu prefecture is not the strongest, it can be ranked second or third. As long as the Luo clan agrees to my conditions first, the other forces will not reject, nor will they dare to reject. Previously, I divided the Jianghu prefecture's business into 12 portions. Now, 10 portions is enough. In return for a plum, I can give the Divine Feather sect and Do Weihu's portion to the Luo clan." After a moment of silence, the Luo clan's ancestor said in a deep voice, "Good plan. Destroy the Divine Feather sect and the Haiyan Hall, and make an example out of them. Then, the Luo clan will take the lead and agree to your plan. The martial arts forces in Jianghu prefecture are not united to begin with, and this time, they have directly collapsed. I don't think there will be many who will dare to resist you. Even if there are, they won't be able to do much. However, if the Luo clan is the first to agree to your conditions, then the Luo clan's reputation in Jianghu prefecture will plummet, and the other martial arts forces will despise the Luo clan for being treacherous." Chu Xiu shrugged and said, "You have to give as much as you want. Compared to the benefits that the Luo clan will receive, a mere infamy is nothing." The Luo clan's ancestor took a step forward, narrowed his eyes, and said, "What if I don't agree?" Chu Xiu said indifferently, "If you don't agree, then I will go to the Water Avoidant Sword sect and the Xiong clan of Huacheng. These two forces also have experts at the Three-Flower Realm at one's prominence, and they are not weaker than the Luo clan. Old man Luo, you can resist the temptation of these benefits, but can you guarantee that the Water Avoidant Sword sect and the Xiong clan won't? The result will be the same. I don't care who is the first to agree to my conditions. As long as I have this person, that's enough." The Luo clan's ancestor wanted to say something, but in the end, he didn't say it. He only sighed because he couldn't guarantee that the other two forces would not agree to Chu Xiu's conditions. Having been in Jianghu prefecture for so many years, he had long understood what the other martial arts forces were like. They were scattered sand, each with their own agendas. If they could really put aside all their scheming and work together, then they would have been able to threaten Chu Xiu back at the Phoenix Tower. He would rather betray others than let others betray him. The Luo clan's ancestor gritted his teeth and said, "All right, I agree to official Chu's conditions." The benefits were right in front of him. Instead of letting others take them, he might as well take them himself. As for the fact that the entire martial arts world of Jianghu prefecture was completely alienated because of him, the Luo clan's ancestor couldn't care less. The Luo clan's ancestor's principle all his life was to keep a low profile and follow the trend. He would only be the third or fourth, never the first or second. As a result, he was old. Under the threat of Chu Xiu, he could only choose to be the first. At this time, the Luo clan's ancestors' feelings were a little complicated. Chu Xiu smiled and said, "Old man Luo, when the business in Jianghu prefecture starts in the future, you will find that your choice today was not wrong. You will feel lucky for this." The Luo clan's ancestor smiled bitterly and said, "I hope so." Chu Xiu directly stood up and said, "In this case, I will trouble you to inform the other martial arts forces in Jianghu prefecture. 3 days later, at noon, I will hold a banquet in Jianghu prefecture. Those who come this time will be considered to have agreed to my plan. At that time, everyone will discuss what business they are responsible for. As for those who don't come, forget it. Old man Luo, there is no need to say anything. They should have seen the consequences." After saying that, Chu Xiu directly turned around and left with his people, leaving only the Luo clan's ancestor in the hall with a melancholy look on his face. This time, he clearly understood Chu Xiu's character. He was domineering and cruel. He was as cunning as a fox, but he was also as fierce as a wolf. This kind of person was generally very common in the diabolism. God knew what the Guanzhong torture room was thinking. How could they bring such a person into the Guanzhong torture room? But now, the Luo clan's ancestor was too lazy to think so much. He had already boarded the pirate ship, and it was too late to regret now. Several core disciples of the Luo clan walked in and said cautiously, "Ancestor, what should we do now? Do we really agree to Chu Xiu's conditions?" The Luo clan's ancestor snorted coldly and said, "What should we do? Of course it's nothing. If we don't agree, the other aristocratic families will have to. What do you think we can do?" The Luo clan's ancestor suddenly thought of something. He asked the disciple, "How is the Gao clan now?" The Gao clan's ancestor was asking about was the only one who came late to the Phoenix house last time. In the end, Chu Xiu attacked him and threw him out in the end. The Luo clan's disciple was a little puzzled as to why the ancestor suddenly asked about the Gao clan, but he still said, "Last time, the Gao clan's master was seriously injured by Chu Xiu. His internal organs were directly injured. Although his life was saved, he has been disabled and is still unconscious. The Gao clan's master is in the prime of his life. He has not chosen the next master. As a result, the Gao clan is in a mess now. The disciples are fighting for power." The Luo clan's ancestor waved his hand and said, "Later, take some people and destroy the Gao clan." The Luo clan's disciple was stunned. "Ancestor, what did you say? Destroy the Gao clan? Why? We have no enmity with the Gao clan." The Gao clan's strength was not strong. It was at the bottom of the Jianghu prefecture's martial arts world. The Luo clan was at the top, so there was no enmity between them. If there had been enmity, the Gao clan would not have survived until now. But now, the Luo clan's ancestor said that he wanted to destroy the Gao clan. This was really confusing. The Luo clan's ancestor said faintly, "Remember, in the future, be respectful to official Chu. Even in secret, don't call him by his name. The Luo clan's choice this time is contrary to my usual style of doing things. Since this is the case, we might as well do it more ruthlessly. It's a good opportunity to give Lord Chu Xiu a gift. Since the Gao clan offended official Chu, and official Chu did not destroy the Gao clan, this matter will be done by the Luo clan. In any case, the Luo clan's first choice to cooperate with official Chu has already offended the Jianghu prefecture's martial arts world. We are not afraid of offending him even more." In fact, the Luo clan's ancestor did not say something. He destroyed the Gao clan not only to curry favor with Chu Xiu and give Chu Xiu a gift, but also because he suddenly thought about the distribution of the Phoenix Cry Pavilion's business in 3 days. The Luo clan was the first to rely on Chu Xiu. The Divine Feathers sect and the Black Cliff Hall's business would belong to them. If he destroyed the Gao clan now, on one hand, he would curry favor with Chu Xiu. On the other hand, the Gao clan's share of the business would naturally belong to the Luo clan. Although the Luo clan had always been low-key, when it came to ruthlessness, it was not inferior to other martial arts world forces. As the Luo clan's actions spread, the other martial arts world forces in the Jianghu prefecture were completely dumbfounded. Previously, when the Divine Feathers sect and the Black Cliff Hall were destroyed, the martial arts world forces in the Jianghu prefecture only felt angry. They thought that Chu Xiu was too overbearing and arrogant, and that he did not care about the martial arts world forces in the Jianghu prefecture at all. In the end, before they could calm down, they heard that the Luo clan had agreed to Chu Xiu's conditions and had destroyed the Gao clan. This series of news made them unable to react. Chapter 179. The Luo family's betrayal enraged all the martial arts forces in the Jian province prefecture. In the eyes of the other martial arts forces in the Jian province prefecture, everyone had agreed to advance and retreat together. However, the Luo family had suddenly chosen to side with Chu Xiu. This was a betrayal, a blatant betrayal. In the end, the Luo family had even destroyed the Gao family. It was a change from the Luo family's low-key way of doing things. It was simply shocking. However, what happened after the incident? What could they do? Since the Luo family had chosen to cooperate with Chu Xiu, it proved that there were benefits to be gained. Everyone had a tendency to blindly follow orders. In the past, no one had dared to drink Chu Xiu's cup of wine in the Phoenix restaurant. If someone had taken the initiative to drink that cup of wine, the situation would have been completely different. Now that the Divine Feathers sect and the Haiyan Hall had been destroyed by Chu Xiu, everyone had also seen Chu Xiu's overbearing and ruthless methods. In addition, the Luo family had already chosen to cooperate with Chu Xiu. Was there any meaning for the others to struggle? In particular, those small sects that weren't considered strong on their own directly chose to join forces with Chu Xiu. 3 days later, in the Phoenix restaurant, the same location and the same banquet were being held. However, this time, everyone seemed to have made an appointment. They had arrived early and were waiting for Chu Xiu. Compared to the previous banquet, there were 3 people missing this time. Everyone knew that these 3 people would never appear here again. When it was close to noon, Chu Xiu walked into the Phoenix restaurant with his people. Everyone immediately stood up and bowed to Chu Xiu. "Greetings, official Chu." Seeing this, Du Guangzhong, who was following behind Chu Xiu, could not help but sigh in his heart. How long had it been since he had seen such a scene? In the past, when he was young, Guan Siyu had just taken control of the Guangzhong torture room. Her methods were decisive and sharp, causing the sects in the Guangzhong region to fear her. At that time, although the Guangzhong torture room was not as powerful as it was now, its might was at its peak. At that time, the inspectors would be called true inspectors. Once the inspectors found that a martial faction had done something that violated the laws of Guangzhong, there was no need for them to negotiate. They would directly punish them, and the more serious ones would be exterminated. Later on, people gradually slacked off, and the martial arts sects in the Guangzhong area also developed in peace. The status of the two sides changed, and they were on equal footing now. Even when it came to the previous inspector, Fang Zhengyuan, the sects of the Jianghu prefecture brazenly looked down on him. The scene before their eyes represented that the Jianghu prefecture's inspector hall had regained its dignity. At the very least, in the Jianghu prefecture, Chu Xiu was like a local tyrant. No one dared to go against his orders. Looking at everyone present, Chu Xiu nodded and said, "All right, sit down." After everyone was seated, Chu Xiu poured another cup of wine, raised it, and said, "Since everyone is here, it means that everyone agrees with what I said before. Don't think that 20% of the profit is a lot. The benefits I can bring to everyone are definitely more than 20%. I will still say the same thing. After drinking this cup of wine, everyone will earn money together. I will not let anyone suffer a loss. This time, as Chu Xiu raised his cup, everyone present also raised their cups and drank the wine in their cups. As for whether the wine was fragrant or bitter, only they themselves knew. However, the feeling of being forced to drink was not a good one. Moreover, the problem was that they had no choice but to drink the wine. They had already seen the consequences of refusing a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Currently, the Gao family, the Divine Feathers sect, and the Black Cliff Hall didn't even have the chance to drink. Therefore, a wise man submits to circumstances. After all, the Luo family was the first to agree. What was the point of them continuing to resist? After drinking the wine, Chu Xiu took out a booklet and said, "This is the name list of the businesses in the Jianghu prefecture that I have researched. From now on, everyone will monopolize the businesses that they are responsible for. Don't touch what you shouldn't. If I find that someone is careless, then don't blame me for being impolite." Everyone present felt a chill in their hearts and nodded one after another. In the past, there was no problem no matter what they did. But now that they had agreed to the rules of the game set by Chu Xiu, they had to act according to Chu Xiu's rules. Only now did they realize that their relationship with Chu Xiu wasn't just a cooperation. It was basically a relationship of ruling and being ruled. The rules were set by Chu Xiu, and it was also Chu Xiu who would supervise the implementation. In this way, they naturally had to go against Chu Xiu. However, now that they had agreed to the matter and drunk the wine, there was no point in thinking about those messy things. Therefore, everyone present could only nod as they accepted their fate. Chu Xiu continued, "Next, I will talk about the businesses that you can monopolize. Among them, the Luo family is in charge of the medicinal herbs business, which are medicinal herbs and elixirs that have not been refined. Cultivators needed medicine when they were injured, and they also needed all kinds of elixirs for their daily cultivation. They also needed to refine all kinds of strange things. A large number of medicinal herbs and elixirs were the foundation. Therefore, this was a big business and could be said to be the most profitable business. However, no one was jealous. After all, the Luo family was the first to decide to rely on this official Chu. It was normal for him to receive such treatment. Chu Xiu continued, "From now on, the business of healing elixirs and formations will also belong to the Luo clan." As soon as they heard this, everyone present looked at the Luo family in a different light. No wonder the Luo family would choose to be the first to agree to Chu Xiu. It turned out that Chu Xiu had made such a promise to them. The shares of the Heavenly Feathers sect and the Black Rock Hall were actually given to the Luo family by Chu Xiu. Although healing elixirs weren't as popular as cultivation elixirs, their value was much higher than normal cultivation elixirs. The profits were also much higher. The same was true for the array business. Although there were fewer people selling and fewer people buying, the profits were just as high. There is also the hidden weapons and sounds business, which is also under the Luo family's control. Hearing this, everyone present understood that the hidden weapons and sounds business should belong to the Gao family. Because the Luo family had destroyed the Gao family, it could be considered as helping Chu Xiu vent his anger and pleasing Chu Xiu. Therefore, the Gao family's share also fell into the hands of the Luo family. Originally, each person was in charge of one category of business. Now, the Luo family had one major category and three minor ones. This treatment was enough to make the people of the Luo family burst into laughter and make others jealous. This was especially true for the other two families, the Water Avoidance Sword sect and the Xiang family, who had 3 Flower Realm warriors at one's prominence. At this moment, they were also a little regretful. If they had known that they would choose to rely on Chu Xiu, they would have done so earlier. They could have even made more benefits. The Luo family had the upper hand, which was something that they could not be envious of. At this time, Chu Xiu announced the businesses under the water avoidance sword sect and the Xiang family's control. One was in the cultivation elixirs, while the other was in the weapons category. They were both major categories that were extremely profitable, so the people of the two sects were quite satisfied. Chu Xiu was very fair when he made these decisions. It was completely based on strength. If you are strong, I will give you the big business. Otherwise, you can focus on some of the smaller businesses. Otherwise, you won't be able to keep the big business. By the time Chu Xiu read to the end, they were basically businesses that were not very important. At this time, the head of a small family seemed to be a little dissatisfied. He couldn't help but stand up and say, "Official Chu, the Sun family." Before he could finish speaking, he saw Chu Xiu look over with a somewhat gloomy expression. He said, "What's wrong? Does the Sun family have a problem with my arrangements?" Looking at the silent people around him, the head of the Sun family could only swallow his saliva. He laughed awkwardly, sat back down, and said, "No, no problem." These large sects did not refute Chu Xiu's arrangements. If a small family dared to say anything, the Heavenly Feathers sect and the Black Rock Hall had already learned from their mistakes. Seeing this scene, the people of the Luo family also sighed. From now on, in the Jianghu prefecture, no one could stop Chu Xiu's power. As long as he was still the inspector of the Jianghu prefecture would have to respect him. Picking up his wine cup, Chu Xiu toasted everyone and said, "This cup of wine, I wish everyone a lot of wealth." "Thank you, Your Excellency." Everyone present raised their cups and responded in unison. After everyone received the plan, the entire Jianghu prefecture began to move. Of course, this had nothing to do with Chu Xiu. He was only responsible for sending people to collect the money. According to Chu Xiu's instructions, each of the major martial arts factions monopolized one business. The merchants who came and went immediately noticed the difference. At first, when the prices of the goods they sold were lowered, these merchants were reluctant. However, after they went to several small cities, it was the same. Other than the faction that Chu Xiu designated, no one dared to buy their goods. In this way, these people could either go to other prefectures or sell to the people of the Jianghu prefecture. However, the problem was that the contraband they carried was very dangerous. If they did not sell it quickly, it would be troublesome if they were caught by the Guangzhong torture room. Especially now that Chu Xiu was in cahoots with the local martial arts factions, he often sent out some Jianghu constables to investigate the smuggling. Although they did not really make a move, it was enough to scare these merchants into selling their goods at a low price. The same was true for the merchants who bought the goods. What they wanted to buy was only sold by the martial arts faction in the Jianghu prefecture. The price was there, and if they did not want to buy it, they would have to go to other prefectures. In the beginning, the merchants who came and went were a little dissatisfied with this behavior, but later they found that it was quite convenient. As long as the seller came to the Jianghu prefecture, found the right faction, and sent the goods to them, there would be no Jianghu constables to investigate at all. It was convenient and easy. Compared with the previous time when he had to go to each faction to negotiate the price, it saved a lot of time. The same was true for the merchants who bought the goods. After a few times, they would know what kind of business each faction was doing. When the time came, they could directly go to the faction to buy, saving time and effort. Chapter 180. Although Jianghu Prefecture's business model caused merchants to pay more than other prefectures and prefectures, it saved time and effort. Most importantly, it was safe. As long as you bought smuggled goods from the martial arts forces in Jianghu Prefecture, no one from the Guangzhong torture room would come to investigate you. But if you bought it from someone else, that might not be the case. As a result, Jianghu City attracted more merchants than usual, and the news spread like wildfire. Jianghu City, which wasn't very prosperous before, became twice as prosperous as the other cities within a month. Naturally, the actions of Jianghu Prefecture could not be hidden from others. Jiang Taoran and other constables in Guanxi wanted to learn, but this kind of thing could not be replicated at all. Chu Xiu could use all kinds of methods to suppress all the martial arts forces in Jianghu Prefecture. Even if other inspectors were stronger than Chu Xiu, the strength of their subordinates was also stronger than Jianghu Prefecture. There wasn't even a single expert at the five Qis collecting in the origin realm in the martial arts circle under the Jianghu Prefecture, but there were other great clans or great sects in other places. Moreover, they weren't Chu Xiu. There were certain methods that Chu Xiu could use, but they couldn't. A month later, the people that Chu Xiu planted in the major forces had calculated 20% of their profits for this month and sent it to the inspector's hall. The smuggling profits for this month were more than double the previous profits of these families and sections. Now, even if they had to give Chu Xiu 20%, they would still earn. So this time, no one had any complaints. They were even worried that Chu Xiu would kick them out. After all, they weren't the only martial arts influences in the entire Jianghu Prefecture. There were still some small influences. With Chu Xiu's current influence, if anyone was disobedient, Chu Xiu could completely kick them out and then support a small aristocratic family. With Chu Xiu's support, even if that small aristocratic family only had one Xiantian realm martial artist, it would be enough to have a firm foothold in the entire Jianghu Prefecture. In the Great Hall of the Inspector's Hall, boxes were placed in front of Chu Xiu and the others. As the boxes were opened, there were densely packed purple gold, elixirs, minerals, and other hard currencies. Seeing these things, everyone present couldn't help but breathe faster. Even the Ghost Hand King and the other assassins of the Blue Dragon Society were like this. The Ghost Hand King and the other assassins of the Blue Dragon Society could be considered to have seen the world, but they had never seen so many treasures in front of them. This was simply more than the profits of a large family. Chu Xiu said in a deep voice, "Old Du, keep half of these things. Give 20% to our brothers. As for the specific distribution, you can discuss with the Ghost Hand King. Pack the other half for me. I'm going to bring it to the Guanxi branch." Du Guangzhong nodded. He knew who Chu Xiu was preparing these things for. However, it was already very good that his subordinates could get 20%. At the very least, Chu Xiu's generosity was far greater than Fang Zhengyuan's. Fire Slave, Wolf King, and the other assassins of the Blue Dragon Society also revealed a hint of a smile. When they carried out a big mission in the Blue Dragon Society, they also received a lot of benefits. In total, it was even more than what they were given this time. However, such a big mission was always very difficult. They could only complete it by risking their lives. Now, however, it was much easier. One should know that only Tang Ye and Yan Bugui had contributed a lot to the annihilation of the two families. Although the others had also contributed, in the eyes of the Fire Slave and the Wolf King, it was just a one-sided massacre. Whether it was the Divine Feathers sect or the Blackcliff Hall, there was simply no one who could fight. They were too weak, so weak that they had no interest in killing them. However, even though killing people was boring, they were still very satisfied with the amount of cultivation resources they could obtain so easily. When they were in the Blue Dragon Society, they were too tense. Apart from killing people, they were also cultivating. As a result, although their combat power was very strong, their cultivation speed could not keep up. Now that they had time to relax and a large number of cultivation resources, they were probably not far from breaking through to the next realm. After giving instructions here, Chu Xiu directly brought the things to the Guanxi branch. At this time, in the Guanxi Punishment Hall branch, Wei Jiuduan directly called Chu Xiu to his study after hearing that he wanted to see him. "Greetings, Lord." Chu Xiu cupped his hands respectfully. Wei Jiuduan played with the dragon pattern iron ball in his hand and looked at Chu Xiu. I heard about what you did in the Jianghu prefecture. You are quite bold. Previously, you said that the Jiang family used my name to do evil. In the end, aren't you also relying on me to be lawless? Don't you need to give me an explanation for this matter? Wei Jiuduan's voice was calm, but a faint pressure attacked Chu Xiu. Chu Xiu lowered his head and said, "Of course there is an explanation. I have already asked someone to bring it here. It is just outside the door." Wei Jiuduan gave the order, and immediately, someone carried the large boxes that Chu Xiu had brought into the study, and then immediately left. Chu Xiu opened the boxes one by one, revealing the dazzling purple gold and elixirs that emitted a strong medicinal fragrance. Seeing these things, Wei Jiuduan's expression instantly became amiable, and the pressure also dissipated. Chu Xiu cupped his hands and smiled. "Lord, this is only the first month's income. In the future, the income will only increase. I wonder if Lord is satisfied with this explanation?" Wei Jiuduan smiled and nodded repeatedly. He couldn't help but be satisfied. In the past, among the patrol envoys under him, the one who was the best at making money was Wei Hanshan. The one who gave him the most was also Wei Hanshan. However, no matter how much Wei Hanshan gave Wei Jiuduan, it was just a show of filial piety. If there was something to do, he would give more. If there wasn't, he would give less. He wouldn't be like Chu Xiu, who took out such a large sum of purple gold and cultivation resources to give to Wei Jiuduan every month. Seeing these things, Wei Jiuduan was finally satisfied. It seemed that his decision to protect Chu Xiu was really the right decision. Otherwise, where would these things come from? However, Wei Jiuduan didn't forget to give Chu Xiu a warning. Looking at the things, Wei Jiuduan said indifferently, "Chu Xiu, you are a smart person. You know what you should do and what you shouldn't do. I can protect you from the trouble you caused in the Jianghu prefecture, but don't think that this matter will end just like that. If the higher-ups investigate, it will still be troublesome. You have to act appropriately, understand?" Chu Xiu immediately put on a terrified expression and said, "Yes, this subordinate will solemnly listen to Lord's teachings." Seeing Chu Xiu's attitude, Wei Jiuduan nodded in satisfaction and said, "All right, go back. I can still help you deal with these small matters." Chu Xiu lowered his head and left Wei Jiuduan's study. When he turned around, a look of disdain could be seen in his eyes. This time, Chu Xiu had bled a lot. For a greedy person like Wei Jiuduan, it was necessary to feed him in one go. Otherwise, who knew what kind of tricks he would come up with? Now it seemed that Wei Jiuduan was quite satisfied with the things Chu Xiu offered. However, he still gave Chu Xiu a few warnings out of habit. It seemed that his harsh and ungrateful nature wouldn't change. In reality, when did Chu Xiu need to tell him when to act appropriately? Since Chu Xiu dared to make a move, Chu Xiu knew better than anyone else. The officials would not investigate if the people did not report it. Currently, the entire Jian prefecture was under Chu Xiu's control. Who would dare to make trouble? Therefore, the money Chu Xiu took out was just a protection fee to buy some peace. After returning to the Jianghu prefecture, Chu Xiu directly went into seclusion. Since there was nothing to do inside and outside, he should consolidate his cultivation. Not only Chu Xiu, but Yan Bugui, Tangya, and the other assassins of the Blue Dragon Society also did the same. When they were in the Blue Dragon Society, they usually killed more people than they cultivated. Now that they had changed places and had the conditions, they naturally had to go into seclusion and rest. Du Guangzhong and the other Jianghu constables were happy to see this happen. They couldn't wait for Tangya and the others to stay in seclusion and not fight with them for power. In the process of destroying the Divine Feathers sect and the Black Cliff Hall, they also saw how terrifying these guys from the Blue Dragon Society were, especially Tangya and Yan Bugui. Either one of them could defeat the three of them. Now that the order in the Jianghu prefecture had been completely stabilized, there was almost nothing for Chu Xiu to worry about. Therefore, he also went into seclusion peacefully for more than 2 months. However, at this time, Du Guangzhong suddenly knocked on the door of Chu Xiu's seclusion room, saying that he had something important to report. Du Guangzhong had been a constable in the Guangzhong torture room for so many years. Although he was a little pedantic, he was still very reliable. He could solve most things. Now that Du Guangzhong had come looking for him, it was obviously not a small matter. After stretching his body, Chu Xiu called Du Guangzhong into the study and asked, "What happened? Why are you looking for me in such a hurry?" Du Guangzhong cupped his hands and said, "A small family in the one city of the Jianghu prefecture, Lu clan, has been annihilated." Chu Xiu frowned and said, "What's the fuss about a small family being annihilated? Who did it?" It wasn't like Chu Xiu had never seen a family being annihilated. Not long ago, he had even annihilated the Divine Feathers sect and the Black Cliff Hall. As for the local small families in the Jianghu prefecture, it was even more common. As long as they didn't violate the laws of the Guangzhong torture room and didn't affect Chu Xiu's interests, they could do whatever they wanted. At the very least, Chu Xiu couldn't be bothered to care. Du Guangzhong revealed a bitter smile and said, "I don't know. Lu Chengli, Qin Fang, and I have already investigated, but we didn't find anything. That's why we came looking for you." Chapter 181. Hearing that Du Guangzhong and the others had no clue, Chu Xiu was also very surprised. Du Guangzhong and the other veteran constables were far from Tang Ye and the others in terms of strength, but they were the best in the entire Jianghu in terms of analyzing traces and solving cases. But now that so many people had gone there, they didn't even know who the killer was. This was simply a joke. Chu Xiu thought about it and said in a deep voice, "Go get Ghost Hand King and the others, let's go take a look." It had to be said that Chu Xiu was still a little incompetent as an inspector in some aspects. Apart from killing people, he hadn't learned any of the special skills of the Guangzhong torture room. Du Guangzhong and the others couldn't find any clues, so it would probably be the same if he went. Getting Ghost Hand King and the others here, there was strength in numbers, and they might be able to find something. After getting everyone here, Chu Xiu and the others immediately went to Wen City. In the past, the number one family in Wen City was the Gao family. It was the Gao family that was the first to arrive late at the Phoenix's Cry restaurant. They were severely injured by Chu Xiu on the spot, and were later annihilated by the Luo family. After the Gao family died, no one in Wen City could replace the position of the Gao family. Therefore, the few small forces fought each other, and until now, there was no clear leader. This Lu family was a small force in Wen City. They had an inner strong realm martial artist and more than 10 Xiantian realm martial artists. They weren't too strong, but they weren't too weak compared to the other small families. After stepping into Wen City, Chu Xiu felt that many of the martial artists in Wen City had a look of horror on their faces, as if they had seen a ghost. When they arrived at the Lu family, there were no martial artists that came to watch the show. Only a few constables from the Guangzhong torture room were waiting. Qin Fang and Lu Chengli had gone to the other families in Wen City to inquire about the news. Chu Xiu also noticed that there were a few martial artists from the Luo family standing there with pale faces. One of them Chu Xiu had seen before. It was Luo Shuangquan, the youngest son of the Luo family's old ancestor. Seeing Chu Xiu arrive, Luo Shuangquan immediately went up to greet him. "Greetings, official Chu." Chu Xiu asked in surprise, "Why are people from your Luo clan here?" Luo Shuangquan smiled bitterly. "After the Gao family was destroyed by our Luo family, Wen City was without a master for a while. The Gao family's business was handed over to our Luo family by official Chu, so our Luo family decided to leave some people in Wen City to manage the business. This Lu family is actually one of our Luo family's vassals. They used to work for our Gao family, so I naturally had to come and take a look at what happened." In the end, I don't know who did it. Killing is killing, but it ended up like this. Many of the merchants who came to Wen City ran away. My Luo family's business in Wen City directly halved. Before, Chu Xiu had felt that something was wrong. Those low-level martial artists loved to watch a good show. Even if there were martial artists from the Guangzhong torture room blocking the way, there would still be many people watching. Why was it so quiet here today? Chu Xiu asked Du Guangzhong, "Old Du, what's going on?" Du Guangzhong smiled bitterly. "Official Chu, it's better if you personally take a look. I don't even know how to describe it." Chu Xiu furrowed his brows and led his people into the Lu family. As soon as he opened the door, Chu Xiu smelled a thick stench of blood. And when he entered the Lu family's meeting hall, Chu Xiu felt as if he had stepped into hell. At this time, the entire meeting hall was filled with the corpses of the Lu family members. The heads of these corpses were hung from the roof beams with hemp ropes. The most terrifying thing was that these corpses were all skinned from the neck down. Their stomachs were cut open, and their hearts, livers, spleens, lungs, and kidneys were all plucked out. In the center of the corpses' foreheads, there was a small hole made by a sharp weapon. Their brains were also sucked out. The scene was terrifying to the extreme. It really was like hell. Du Guangzhong said with a pale face, "The Lu family's annihilation was discovered by the local martial artists of Wen City. No one noticed anything strange with the Lu family overnight. In the end, in the morning of the second day, someone smelled blood from the Lu family's mansion and forced their way in. In the end, they saw this scene. Many people in Wen City have already seen this scene." Chu Xiu nodded. No wonder the martial artists in Wen City looked like they had seen a ghost. Even some merchants were scared away. It was not that their ability to accept things was low, but this scene was truly like hell. It was incomparably terrifying. At this time, apart from Chu Xiu, only Yan Bugui and Tang Ye could maintain a normal expression. The methods these two used to kill people were sometimes no less brutal than this scene. It was just that when they killed people, they usually only killed one person. It would not be as spectacular as this hall full of corpses. Chu Xiu frowned and said, "Tell me about the situation." Du Guangzhong nodded. "After the local constables of Wen City informed us, Old Lu, Old Qin, and I directly brought people to check the corpses. These corpses have already been destroyed beyond recognition. It is impossible to tell the cause of death. But the only thing we can be sure of is that they all died of internal injuries. Apart from the wounds after they were skinned and cut open, we did not find any other wounds. And the strangest thing is that we did not find any damage in the meridians of these corpses. This is also a suspicious point. Could it be that the opponent's Gang Qi could pass through the meridians and directly destroy their internal organs? And then there is their current appearance. Half of their bodies were skinned for some unknown reason. All the organs of the corpses were missing. And the holes on their heads were specially made to extract human brains. Apart from these, there are no other clues. There is not even the slightest trace of a fight. The only thing we can be sure of is that the opponent is very strong. Otherwise, it would be impossible for them to silently destroy the Lu family. And there should be quite a number of people. From the knife marks that cut open the abdomen, we can see that the opponent only used ordinary sharp daggers. But from the details, we found that the strength of the people who cut open the abdomen was different. The shape and subtle habits were also different. So there should be many people who cut open the abdomen, at least more than 10 people. That is all for the time being. We have not found anything else." Chu Xiu nodded. It was already not easy for Du Guangzhong to find this out. If it was Chu Xiu himself, he could only see that the opponent was very strong. He probably could not find anything else. After leading the people out of this hell-like meeting hall, Chu Xiu could not help but pinch his chin and ponder. Killing a family in revenge was not something new. If it was just a revenge, Chu Xiu would not even care. But the problem was that this matter did not look like a revenge, but more like some kind of ritual. If it was a revenge, whether it was 1,000 cuts or a car being split in half, all they wanted was a quick death. But now, these Lu family warriors were skinned and their organs and brains were extracted. Obviously, there was another purpose. However, Chu Xiu really did not think of what would need these things in the human body. In the past, the rising star of the Longhu list, Heart Hunter, Tong Kaitai, who was ranked above Chu Xiu, was said to like to cut out the heart of people after killing and swallow it. It was said that he could obtain a part of the power of qi and blood of the other party. Of course, this kind of thing was just a rumor. Anyway, in the eyes of most people, the power of qi and blood of a warrior was condensed in the meridians of the whole body. What was the use of just digging out the heart? And when the person died, the power of qi and blood would directly dissipate, leaving not much in the heart. So for Tong Kaitai's method, most people thought that it was just a perverted hobby of the other party. Glancing at Luo Shuangquan, who was still a little pale, Chu Xiu rubbed his head. This was really a troublesome matter. When such a thing happened to his subordinates, as the patrol, Chu Xiu had to take care of it. Moreover, it was not a big deal for these people to kill people, but they had to make it so horrifying, scaring away many merchants who came and went. It not only affected the Luo family's business, but also his own income. Chu Xiu said to Du Guangzhong, "Ask Qin Fang and Lu Chengli to investigate the strangers who entered Jianghu prefecture during this time, especially in large numbers." After that, Chu Xiu said to Luo Shuangquan, "Go back and pass a message to your clan's patriarch. Get him to mobilize the other martial arts factions in the Jianghu prefecture to pay more attention and cooperate with the Guangzhong Discipline Hall's investigation." Luo Shuangquan nodded repeatedly. If it were any other place, this kind of thing would be Guangzhong torture room's work, and the local martial arts forces would not bother to intervene. But when it was Chu Xiu who had the final say in Jianghu prefecture, other martial arts forces would have to cooperate with him if he asked them to. Especially since this matter had affected the Luo family's business, the Luo family had to try their best to cooperate with Guangzhong torture room to dig out the murderer and settle this matter as soon as possible. Chu Xiu turned his head and said to Ghost Hand King and the others, "You have been in Jianghu for so long, have you ever heard of such a thing?" Yan Bugui was expressionless, Tangya shrugged, Fire Slave and Wolf King also shook their heads. Only Ghost Hand King opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but he held it back. Chu Xiu frowned and said, "Ghost Hand King, what do you know?" Ghost Hand King smiled awkwardly and said, "It's just hearsay, and this matter is a little sensitive. I'm afraid that if I say it out, it will mislead everyone." Hearing Ghost Hand King's words, Luo Shuangquan cupped his hands and said, "Official Chu, you go ahead. I will inform the old ancestor to start the search in Jianghu prefecture." After saying that, Luo Shuangquan directly left with the Luo family. Although he was also a little curious about what Ghost Hand King wanted to say, he also knew that some things should not be asked, and some things should not be listened to. Otherwise, the consequences would be very miserable. Chu Xiu sent everyone away, leaving only Du Guangzhong, Tangya, and a few other trusted subordinates of the Blue Dragon Society. He entered a study room of the Lu family and asked Ghost Hand King, "Tell me, what exactly is going on?" Ghost Hand King swallowed a mouthful of saliva and said, "I have heard some similar things in my early years. The hidden story is related to the Kunlun devil cult in the past." Chapter 182. One could not blame the Ghost Hand King for making things so tense. It was indeed very sensitive when it came to the Kunlun devil cult. In Jianghu, the demonic path was not a taboo, but the Kunlun devil cult was the taboo of the taboo. In the past, the Kunlun devil cult swept the world with its demonic flames. Countless righteous sects could only tremble under its demonic might. No one wanted to experience those days again. If it was not for the real martial arts sect's leader, Ning Xuanji, who turned the tide, the righteous path of Jianghu would probably still be struggling under the demonic might. Hearing the words Kunlun devil cult, Chu Xiu's expression was a little strange. This was the path he had to take in the future. He did not expect to come into contact with it now. You mean, the person who attacked this time is a remnant of the Kunlun devil cult? Although it had been 1,000 years since the collapse of the Kunlun devil cult, people related to the Kunlun devil cult of the past could still be found in Jianghu. There were even inheritances left behind by the Kunlun devil cult of the past. Once such an existence was discovered, it would be immediately annihilated by those large sections. The Ghost Hand King shook his head and said, "It is not a remnant of the Kunlun devil cult. It is a remnant of the Ghost King sect, one of the vassals of the Kunlun devil cult. In the past, the Kunlun devil cult's demonic flames were monstrous and oppressed the world. Those righteous sects could only be careful and keep a low profile. However, many of the demonic sects were willing to submit to the Kunlun devil cult and be at their beck and call. However, with the disappearance of Dugu Weiwei after the battle with Ning Xuanji, the Kunlun devil cult completely fell apart. The righteous sects joined forces to attack the Kunlun devil cult and destroyed it. Those vassal sects were also hit. Among these vassal sects, there were some loyal sects who chose to live and die with the Kunlun devil cult, but most of them chose to escape. For such a sect, the righteous path of Wulin could not be bothered to waste energy to hunt them down, but there were some evil path sects that had committed heinous sins that must be exterminated, and this Ghost King sect was one of them. The people of the Ghost King sect were sinister and cunning. They were the first to defect from the Kunlun devil cult when they saw that things were not right, but in the end they were also hunted down by the good faction Wulin for many years and almost disappeared from the Jianghu. The Ghost King sect's methods were sinister and evil. One of the best was to refine pills using human bodies, using all kinds of bloody methods to refine human bodies into pills, absorbing the Yin energy and refining Yin ghosts. It was said that in the Ghost King sect there was a type of pill called 5-cheese unification pill. Its use was to assist in training and could also be used as medicine to heal the injuries of the 5-cheese unification realm warriors. The name sounded normal, but in fact it was extremely strange. Among the 5-cheese, the heart contained the spirit and belonged to fire, the liver contained the soul and belonged to wood, the spleen contained the will and belonged to earth, the lung contained the soul and belonged to metal, and the kidney contained the essence and belonged to water. This 5-cheese unification pill was made from the fresh heart, liver, spleen, lung, and kidney of the warriors, and medicinal materials of the 5 attributes of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. Now, the warriors of the Lu family had their 5 internal organs taken away, so I couldn't help but think of the Ghost King sect. Moreover, their brains were taken away and their skin was skinned, which was the style of the Ghost King sect in the past. Also, the Ghost King sect used the Yin energy to refine Yin ghosts, which was a unique secret technique of the Ghost King sect. The Yin ghosts killed people without a trace. Arrestor Du said that those people of the Lu family had no external wounds, and there was no trace of upstanding qi entering their bodies. This could be done by using Yin ghosts to kill people. The Ghost Hand King said so much in one breath, and everyone present was digesting the information. At this time, Chu Xiu suddenly asked, "Ghost Hand King, everyone here is one of us, so you don't need to hide it. These things, I'm afraid, are not as simple as hearsay." In the past, some things related to the Kunlun demon sect had always been taboo. It was the same for the Ghost King sect. At the very least, these people here had never heard of the name of the Ghost King sect. Yet, the Ghost Hand King knew about it so clearly. If this matter was just heard from hearsay, wouldn't it be a little too fake? The Ghost Hand King smiled bitterly. Since he had already said it, he did not intend to hide it from everyone. The Ghost Hand King sighed and said, "Official Chu guessed right. In fact, I used to be a disciple of the Ghost King sect, but I was a disciple who was deceived. In the early years, I was just a trickster who traveled in Jianghu. I accidentally saved a seriously injured Devil Path warrior, who was a member of the Ghost King sect. He said that he wanted to take me as a disciple, but in fact, he wanted me to temporarily help him do things, and after he recovered, he prepared to swallow my blood essence and kill me. Later, his intentions were discovered by me, so I secretly poisoned his medicine and killed him. Because he was lying to me from the start, he never intended to take me in as a disciple, so he did not pass down some of the Ghost King sect secret techniques to me, only some ordinary techniques. Regarding the Ghost King sect's matters, I also heard it from his mouth, but it was just some minor details, not the main things. Chu Xiu nodded his head in understanding. According to what the Ghost Hand King said, the person who did it could really be someone from the Ghost King sect, but the person's strength should not be too strong. The use of the 5 Qis unification pill was used to heal the injuries of the masters of the 5 Qis unification realm, so Chu Xiu estimated that there should be a master of the 5 Qis unification realm among the remaining members of the Ghost King sect, but they should be injured. It could be seen from the target they chose. The Lu family was a small family with only a cultivator in the inner aura realm. If the other party had the strength to crush them, then the other party should have attacked martial arts forces like the Luo family with masters of the 3-flower realm at one's prominence. However, at the moment, he had no clue what the Ghost King sect was, so Chu Xiu could only temporarily order his subordinates to pay attention. The next few days were peaceful, but on the 7th day, another small force in the Jianghu prefecture was destroyed in the same way as the Lu family. Before Chu Xiu could react, 2 days later, there was also a massacre in the Shangzhou prefecture, which belonged to Wei Hanshan, next to the Jianghu prefecture. 3 consecutive massacres, all using the same method, was enough to prove the previous speculation of Chu Xiu and the others. Moreover, the impact of these 3 massacres was not small. The martial arts forces in the Jianghu prefecture also knew that such a group of ruthless villains and thieves had appeared in the local area, and they were all jittery. Moreover, the number of merchants coming and going to the Jianghu prefecture had decreased a lot. After all, there were many places in the entire Guanxi area that could be traded, and no one wanted to stay in such a dangerous place. In the Jianghu prefecture inspector hall, Chu Xiu's face was gloomy. He was the one who lost face when a major case happened in his territory that he could not solve. The appearance of the remaining members of the Ghost King sect had seriously affected the business of the Jianghu prefecture. The other martial arts forces could not make money, and the one who suffered losses was Chu Xiu himself. There are so many Jianghu detectives in the inspector hall, and the cooperation of the local martial arts forces in the Jianghu prefecture, but there are no clues? Du Guangzhong said helplessly, "Of course there are clues, but the other party's method seemed to have scared the brothers under me. When there are fewer people, even if there are clues, they do not dare to go. When reinforcements are called, the other party has disappeared." The Ghost Hand King suddenly laughed strangely and said, "Constable Du, since your men do not dare to go, how about leaving it to my men?" "Don't worry, none of my men are afraid of death." Du Guangzhong snorted coldly and said, "Leave it to you? If I leave it to you, I'm afraid you won't even be able to find a trace, let alone find the person." The Ghost Hand King and the other assassins from the Blue Dragon Society still had some friction with the martial artists from the Guangzhong torture room, and both sides were competing with each other. Previously, the Ghost Hand King and the others had shown extraordinary talent when they slaughtered the Divine Feathers sect and the Black Cliff Hall, suppressing Du Guangzhong and the others. Now, the investigation of the traces of the Ghost King sect and the others was fully handled by Du Guangzhong and the others, while the Ghost Hand King and the others could only assist from the side. Every profession had its own specialization. If the Ghost Hand King and the others were in charge of this matter, they probably wouldn't be able to find any traces at all. Chu Xiu frowned and waved his hand, saying, "All right, stop arguing. I will personally take action next time. As long as they are still in the Jianghu prefecture, we don't have to worry about not being able to dig them out. Moreover, even if we can't find them, we will force them out of the Jianghu prefecture." The remnants of the Ghost King sect didn't come for the Jianghu prefecture. Their arrival in the Guangzhong region seemed to be very sudden, and they were in a hurry to kill and refine pills to recover their strength. Previously, Chu Xiu's investigation might have pushed them a little too hard, which led them to go to the Shangzhou prefecture and make a move again. This time, Chu Xiu personally took action. If he could completely force the other party to Wei Hanshan's side, it would be good. At that time, Wei Hanshan would be in a terrible situation. As for what this group of remnants of the Ghost King's sect would do, it was none of Chu Xiu's business. He had never been a person who liked to meddle in other people's business. 3 days later, in the Jianghu prefecture's riverside city, the pedestrians and cultivators on the streets were sparse. It was far from the bustling city of the past. Riverside City was only a small city, and it was next to the Shangzhou prefecture. As a place one had to pass between the two prefectures, Riverside City used to be relatively prosperous. At the very least, there was an endless stream of merchants coming and going. In the end, because of the 3 consecutive massacres, one of which involved the Shangzhou prefecture, Riverside City, which was a place one had to pass between the two prefectures, was a little more miserable. The number of merchants and cultivators that came and went decreased by more than half. At this time, outside an open-air tavern in Riverside City, a group of Jianghu people was drinking and chatting. One of the cultivators wearing a short martial arts suit sighed and said, "Damn it, this business is getting harder and harder. I don't know which bastard is so ruthless to destroy 3 sects in a row. No one comes to the huge Riverside City anymore." This cultivator was an escort, but he didn't come from an escort agency. Instead, he was a local tyrant who was in charge of short-distance escorts between the various small cities. Rather than saying that he was protecting the goods, it was better to say that he was a guide. As he was familiar with the martial arts forces and situations of the various small cities, he could lead the way and answer the questions of the merchants, so that they wouldn't offend someone they shouldn't when they first arrived. Now that there were fewer merchants coming and going, his business had also decreased. Otherwise, he wouldn't have the time to drink and brag here. Chapter 183. Among the martial artists chatting and bragging in the taverns of Linjiang City, most of them were at the bottom of the pugilistic world. There were only a few at the blood condensation realm, and most of them were only at the body tempering realm. Hearing the escort complain about the 3 recent massacres, one of them couldn't help but tease, "Old Wang, you better be careful these days. It's best if you treat us to a few drinks. Otherwise, we'll report you to the constables of the pugilistic world, saying that you're slandering official Chu." Old Wang immediately glared and said, "Bullsh*t. How can you guys slander someone's innocence? When did I slander official Chu?" That person laughed and said, "Just now, you were the one who said that the people who massacred 3 sects were bastards. Don't forget that when official Chu first took over the Jianghu prefecture, he also massacred the Divine Feathers sect and the Black Cliff Hall. Also, Nan City's Gao clan was indirectly destroyed by official Chu. Doesn't that mean that he massacred 3 sects?" Old Wang snorted coldly and said, "Don't argue. You know which 3 massacres I'm talking about. Also, don't go around talking nonsense about official Chu. Otherwise, don't blame me for falling out with you." Although Chu Xiu had only been in the Jianghu prefecture for less than a year, his influence far surpassed that of the past inspectors. These martial artists at the bottom of the pugilistic world were all like this. They didn't have a good impression of the major sects and aristocratic families, and they didn't have a good impression of the Guangzhong torture room either. Of course, to them, as long as someone was stronger than them, they wouldn't have a good impression of that person. However, most of the martial artists at the bottom of the pugilistic world dreamed of joining the major sects or being chosen by the Guangzhong torture room to become constables. In the past, the inspectors didn't have much prestige in the Jianghu prefecture, so the people at the bottom of the pugilistic world mocked and ridiculed them as much as they wanted. It was fine as long as the other party wasn't in front of them. With Chu Xiu's influence in the Jianghu prefecture, even though he knew that they were joking, Old Wang still felt a little nervous. The other martial artists seemed to sense that they had gone too far with the joke and didn't continue speaking. Someone continued, "You guys don't say. I've also heard of a piece of news. The group of people who exterminated the family are actually not human. If it's not a human, what else can it be? Could it be a ghost?" Wang Laosan asked casually. The man sneered and said, "You don't say, it might really be a ghost. I have a friend in Wen City who has seen the tragic state of the Liu family. Being skinned alive, having his head pierced through, and having his stomach cut open and his organs dug out, was this something a human could do? He's practically an evil spirit, all right?" Wang Laosan took a sip of wine and said disdainfully, "So what if it's a ghost? Could the Guanzhong torture room go to the Jianghu cult or the Taoist master mansion of Longhu Mountain to invite a Taoist priest to draw a talisman? Furthermore, this group of people are definitely evil cultivators. The patrol hall has already issued a reward. Anyone who reports traces will be rewarded with 10 taels of purple gold. If you can capture one of them, even if it's just an existence below the innate realm, there will be a reward of 1,000 taels of purple gold. Since the patrol hall dares to put up such a huge bounty, then they must have some clues to follow. During this period of time, brothers, pay attention and see if there are any outsiders. If you find any traces of them, there will be a bounty of 10 taels of purple gold. TSK, that's purple gold. I've never seen what purple gold looks like in my entire life." As he spoke, Wang Laosan subconsciously looked around. In the past, the people coming and going in Linjiang City were all merchants. After all, this was a location that connected two prefectures. Hence, there were many outsiders and it was really difficult to find them. However, there were a lot fewer people in Linjiang City now. Some unfamiliar faces were still very obvious in the eyes of a local tyrant like Old Wang. And at this moment, Old Wang suddenly saw a strange person shrouded in a black robe walking out of the pharmacy across the street. He couldn't help but take a few more glances at him. The land of Guanzhong was a mix of good and bad people. There were people from the Three Kingdoms, people from beyond the Great Wall, and people from the western regions. It wasn't strange for them to wear all kinds of strange clothes. However, at this moment, Old Wang and the others were still discussing the evil cultivators who destroyed the three families. They wanted to pay more attention to strangers. Naturally, he also subconsciously focused his attention on the other party. At this moment, the strange person in the black robe also noticed Old Wang's gaze. He suddenly raised his head and his eyes were actually suffused with a sinister blood-red color. The two people's gazes met. Old Wang thought of something and couldn't help but reveal a trace of fear in his eyes. And the strange person in the black robe saw the fear in Old Wang's eyes. His scarlet eyes revealed a thick murderous intent. "Run!" Wang Laosan screamed and turned to flee. At this moment, he was also secretly blaming himself for having to look at the other party. In the end, he caused such a fatal disaster. The other warriors in the tavern hadn't reacted, but the strange person in the black robe had already made a move. The earth energy around his body was like a black fog. Almost in an instant, his figure appeared in front of the tavern as if he had teleported. The black fog under his feet also condensed into the shape of a ghost claw, grabbing at Old Wang. A cold aura came from behind. Old Wang suddenly felt his body stiffen. He could only stay where he was and wait for death. For a low-level warrior like him, he could only be said to be a vagrant. In the eyes of those experts, there was almost no difference between him and an ant. But at this moment, a dazzling crimson saber light suddenly fell and directly cut the ghost claw. Dressed in black, Chu Xiu stood beside the strange person in the black robe with a crimson-red sleeve saber in his hand. His powerful aura was almost condensed into a substance, making it hard for people to breathe. In the eyes of these low-level warriors in the Jianghu, there were only two things they could see at this time: Chu Xiu, and Chu Xiu's saber. Official Chu. The low-level warriors in the Jianghu hurriedly bowed to greet him. When they thought of how they had joked about official Chu before, they trembled a little. But at this time, Chu Xiu didn't care about what these low-level warriors thought. He just stared coldly at the strange person in the black robe and said, "You rats are really good at hiding. Why is it only you now? Where are the others?" The strange person in the black robe looked at Chu Xiu with scarlet eyes and said in a hoarse voice, "Jianghu Prefecture Inspector Chu Xiu? Let me give you a piece of advice. You'd better not meddle in our affairs. We will naturally leave Guangzhong after a while. If you insist on meddling in other people's business, you can't bear the consequences." A cold smile appeared at the corner of Chu Xiu's mouth and he said, "The remnants of the Ghost King sect have been chased by those righteous sects like stray dogs, and you dare to speak so ruthlessly in front of me? Do you really think that the Guangzhong torture room is made of mud? You don't know what you are talking about." As soon as he finished speaking, Chu Xiu directly slashed out with his saber. The refined blood divine shield suddenly burst out, and the dazzling saber light cut across the sky. A thick blood aura suddenly erupted. The warrior from the Ghost King sect was first shocked because Chu Xiu had called out his origin. Then, when he saw the Gang Qi with the thick blood aura when Chu Xiu attacked, he couldn't help but exclaim, "Refined blood divine shield." The Blood River sect was a major demonic sect in the past. The refined blood divine shield was so famous that others might not know about it, but demonic sects must have heard of it. However, the warrior from the Ghost King sect then sneered. So what if he knew the refined blood divine shield? No matter how strong the Gang Qi was, he was only at the physical invulnerability realm, while he himself had reached the realm of 3 flower at one's prominence. This group of people from the Ghost King sect had stayed in the Jianghu prefecture for a long time and had even killed 2 sections. Naturally, they had heard some rumors about the Jianghu prefecture. At present, the most famous person in the Jianghu prefecture was Chu Xiu. That was why the warrior from the Ghost King sect could call out Chu Xiu's identity. No matter how strong Chu Xiu was, he was only at the physical invulnerability realm. In the Jianghu prefecture, no one could do anything to them. In the Guangzhong area, they only attacked the forces of Jianghu and tried their best not to provoke the Guangzhong torture room. But now that the people from the Guangzhong torture room had come to their door, they could not blame them for being ruthless. The black Gang Qi condensed into a ghost claw, directly holding Chu Xiu's knife in it. The refined blood divine shield suddenly burst out, barely crushing the ghost claw. However, at this time, a strong corrosive evil force directly penetrated into Chu Xiu's red sleeve knife, staining the crimson blade with a layer of black. The warrior from the Ghost King sect laughed strangely. His figure was like a ghost, faintly discernible and formless. He actually appeared in front of Chu Xiu, black fog swirling around his body. His palm descended, bringing with it a dense ghostly aura that attacked Chu Xiu. His arms hidden in his sleeves were like those of a zombie, showing an unnatural grayish-white color. Moreover, his fingernails were sharp and blood-red, with a deep cold light. Chu Xiu withdrew his knife and formed a seal. In an instant, the golden Gang Qi burst out. The army formula, Great Vajra will seal. At this time, Chu Xiu was like the Buddha's Vajra of the soul formation stage, suppressing demons and punching evil. The Buddha's light shone, illuminating the world. Buddhist seal technique. The warrior from the Ghost King sect screamed as if he had seen a ghost. He wanted to stop, but it was too late. Previously, when he saw Chu Xiu use the refined blood divine shield, he subconsciously thought that Chu Xiu cultivated a demonic method. Who would have thought that he would turn around and use such a Buddhist seal technique? Although the warrior from the Ghost King sect was in the realm of 3 flower at one's prominence, Chu Xiu's strength was not much inferior to his opponent. Coupled with the restraining effect of the Buddhist technique, when the 2 palms met, the warrior from the Ghost King sect directly screamed. As the Gang Qi exploded, all the nails on his hand broke, and the black mist dissipated. He was also blasted away. There was a hint of coldness in Chu Xiu's eyes. The black mist on the red sleeve knife bloomed, and the power of the 3 blades of Avicii burst out, directly expelling the black gang chi of the Ghost King sect warrior. With one slash, the switch from Buddha to devil was extremely natural. Chapter 184. The 3 cuts of Avicii was a crazy martial art, and its power was also extreme. Even the warrior from the Ghost King sect could not help but feel shocked. When Chu Xiu slashed down with his saber, a powerful sinister ghost fog suddenly burst out from behind the Ghost King sect's warrior. An ear-piercing ghost howl rang out and Chu Xiu felt as though a malicious ghost was pouncing towards him. The sinister and cold aura seemed to be devouring his life force. At that moment, Chu Xiu formed the Zhe formula with both hands, and a hazy and mysterious aura enveloped his body, resisting the evil and strange power. The Zhe formula, the inner lion seal, focused on recovery, and was invincible. In the face of this kind of spiritual attack, the defensive ability of the inner lion seal was stronger than that of Duga seal. Moreover, Chu Xiu himself had also cultivated the soul-shifting technique of extinguishing heaven and destroying earth. His mental strength was extremely strong, and his defensive ability against this kind of power was also stronger. However, when Chu Xiu blocked the attack, the figure of the Ghost King sect warrior was already gone, which made Chu Xiu's face suddenly gloomy. At this time, the Ghost Hand King, Du Guangzhong, and the others in the distance also hurried over and asked, "Sir, did you stop that person?" Chu Xiu shook his head and said, "The other party is a warrior in the 3 flowers at one's prominence realm. It is not easy to stop him in a head-on battle. Moreover, the other party has mastered all kinds of strange methods. I was caught off guard and let him escape. By the way, Ghost Hand King, what is the ghost technique of the Ghost King sect? Is it really a ghost?" Thinking of the evil scene in the ghost fog just now, even Chu Xiu could not tell whether that thing was a real evil ghost or not. The Ghost Hand King shook his head and said, "I am not too sure. This ghost secret technique is a secret of the Ghost King sect. I only found out a little bit. According to my understanding, the Yin ghosts raised by the Yin ghost secret technique are actually a part of one's own spirit. Warriors at the 3 flowers at one's prominence realm had reached the pinnacle of spirit, chi, and spirit. The evil ghost was a part of their own spirit that had been stripped out and refined with evil ghost chi day and night. It had become an invisible and intangible ghost that could affect one's spirit and kill without leaving a trace. Therefore, only those who had reached the 3-flower realm were qualified to cultivate the Yin ghost secret technique. Legend has it that when the Yin ghost secret technique is cultivated to the great accomplishment, it can turn from illusion to reality and become a ghost soldier, ghost general, or even a ghost king. I don't know whether it's true or not." Chu Xiu nodded and said, "All right, I got it. Let's hurry up and investigate. It's not like we didn't gain anything this time. At least we know what these people from the Ghost King sect want to do. From now on, we'll keep an eye on the medicine shops in each prefecture." Interrogating the medicine shops was also a whimsical decision of Chu Xiu. Since the Ghost King sect needed 5 internal organs and herbs of 5 attributes to refine the 5 Chi's spirit elixir, if the other party did not have enough resources, they would definitely come to the medicine shops to buy. Therefore, in the past few days, Chu Xiu had been going back and forth to investigate the medicine shops in the small cities of Jianghu Prefecture. Sure enough, he found some clues. However, it was enough for one person to purchase medicinal materials, so Chu Xiu only found one person this time. In the end, he did not succeed in making the other party stay. At this time, Du Guangzhong said, "By the way, Master, just now there was a message from the branch of Guanxi Torture Hall. They said that they want you to go there. It should be about the remnants of the Ghost King sect." Chu Xiu frowned and said, "Has this matter already alerted the Guanxi branch?" Chu Xiu was a little reluctant to make things too big. Moreover, he wanted to drive the person to Wei Hanshan's side. Now that this matter had alarmed the Guanxi branch, things were a little out of Chu Xiu's control. You guys continue to search here. Old Du, come with me to the Guanxi branch. Now, if Chu Xiu went out in Guanzhong, he liked to bring two people with him the most. One was the Ghost Hand King, and the other was Du Guangzhong. When the Ghost Hand King was in the Blue Dragon Society, he helped the Heavenly Sin branch leader deal with some of the chores in the branch. He had done more than the Heavenly Sin branch leader, so it could be said that he was very experienced and prudent. Du Guangzhong was about the same. Although he was a little pedantic, he could be said to be a veteran constable in the Guangzhong torture room. He was very familiar with this aspect, and bringing him along could also save a lot of effort for Chu Xiu. By the time Chu Xiu arrived at the Guanxi branch, the rest of the inspectors had already arrived. Guanxi branch now had a total of 6 inspectors, including Chu Xiu. In addition to Wei Hanzhan and Jiang Taoran, the other 3 were Yingzhou Inspector Fang Hua, Linzhou Inspector Sidu Xing, and Anzhou Inspector Kai Jingsheng. Among these 3, Kai Jingsheng and Sidu Xing were the oldest. They were already old people in the Guangzhong torture room and had the cultivation of 5 qis collecting in one's body. Fang Hua, on the other hand, was at the 3-flower gathering in one's prominent stage. At this time, when he saw Chu Xiu come in, Fang Hua was the first to smile and say, "Official Chu has set good rules in Jianghu. The monthly income is really envious of us." Although Chu Xiu had brought a prohibited matter like smuggling to the surface, which was a little blatant and suspicious, in fact, this matter was tacitly acknowledged by the entire Guangzhong torture hall. Everyone's salary was so little, if they didn't find some extra money, what would they eat and drink? In any case, now Wei Jiuduan tacitly approved this kind of behavior. As long as Wei Jiuduan was still the torture officer, no one would care about this kind of thing. Chu Xiu waved his hand and said, "Official Fang, please don't make fun of me. You are in charge of 2 prefectures, how can your income be lower than my Jianzhou?" Fang Hua smiled bitterly and said, "It can't be compared. My 2 prefectures are the closest to the land of West Chu. Some of the local martial arts forces are also from West Chu. Those West Chu barbarians have a very violent temperament. I can't afford to provoke them and I can't afford to fight them. I am very sullen as an inspector." Fang Hua complained here. In fact, if half of what he said is true, it's already not bad. Guangzhong is the Guangzhong of Guangzhong torture room. As long as the inspector doesn't act like the previous inspector, Fang Zhengyuan, who was too pedantic and excessive and offended his own subordinates and the outside world, in theory, he can still be considered to be relatively comfortable. The martial arts forces under him will at least respect the people of Guangzhong torture room on the surface. During the new year, they will also show their filial piety. Of course, if they want to be like Chu Xiu and be the sole ruler of Jianzhou torture room, it's basically impossible. At this time, Sidu Xing also nodded and said, "Just like what official Fang said, our Guangzhong torture room has become more and more difficult to manage in recent years. The local martial arts forces are getting stronger and stronger. If we are too strong, it's very easy to cause problems. Official Chu, you can use such a short period of time to subdue the Jianghu forces under your command. This method also makes us old guys admire you very much." Previously, when the Guanxi branch's patrol envoys had met, people like Sidu Xing and Kai Jingsheng, who were veterans of the Guanxi branch and had reached the 5 qis origin realm, naturally wouldn't speak much to a junior like Chu Xiu, even though their positions were the same. But as Chu Xiu completely established his foundation in Guanxi, made Wei Hanzhan disgraced, and even planned a new order in Jianzhou torture room, making the whole Jianzhou torture room submit to him. If they were placed in Chu Xiu's current position and strength, none of them have the confidence to do what Chu Xiu did. So until this moment, everyone really regarded Chu Xiu as a colleague, as an existence that can be treated as an equal. They chatted here for a while. At this time, Jiang Taoran also came in and chatted with everyone. Wei Hanzhan was the last to arrive. During this period, Wei Hanshan did not have a good time. Not only was he punished by Wei Jiuduan in front of everyone, but his Qinzhou torture room was also taken away by Wei Jiuduan and given to Jiang Taoran. These were all losses on the surface. Behind the scenes, Wei Hanshan's reputation in the Shangzhou prefecture had plummeted. The local forces of the pugilistic world all thought that he had completely fallen out of favor with Wei Jiuduan. They even looked down on him. During this period, Wei Hanshan did not cause trouble for Chu Xiu, not because he did not bear a grudge against Chu Xiu, but because he had a lot of troubles on his hands. How could he have the leisure to cause trouble for Chu Xiu? Wei Hanshan walked into the meeting hall. Without saying a word, he directly glared at Chu Xiu and snorted coldly, "Chu Xiu, the strength of your Jianzhou torture room is too weak. You can't even catch those evil cultivators, and in the end, you even implicated my Shangzhou torture room. What kind of patrol are you?" This time, Wei Hanshan could really be considered an undeserved disaster. At the beginning, the people from the Ghost King sect had appeared in Jianzhou torture room. It was because of Chu Xiu's pursuit that they were forced to the direction of Shangzhou torture room. This also caused the people from the Ghost King sect to attack in Shangzhou torture room. However, Chu Xiu naturally would not say this out loud. He only coldly asked, "Wei Hanshan, don't forget who you are. No matter how incompetent I am as a patrol, Lord Wei will naturally reprimand me. Who do you think you are, to have the right to make irresponsible remarks here? Or do you, Wei Hanshan, think that Lord Wei is already old, so you want to replace Lord Wei and exercise the authority of the penal officer?" As soon as these words came out, Situ Xing and Kai Jingsheng's expressions did not look good. They did not have a good impression of Wei Hanshan either. The two of them were the most powerful among the patrols, but they were also the oldest. Their strength had already reached a period of decline, and it was basically impossible for them to sit in the position of penal officer. According to the rules of the Guanzhong torture room, once Wei Jiuduan stepped down as penal officer, either the Guanzhong torture room would send the leader of the punishment bureau to take over the position, or they would directly select and groom the patrols in Guanzhong. It did not matter if one's strength was insufficient. The most important thing was ability and potential. After all, it was better for the position of penal officer to be held by someone familiar with the situation. Therefore, there were only a few people in the Guanxi branch who met the requirements, and Wei Hanshan was one of them. Before Chu Xiu came, Wei Hanshan's actions were already very high profile and arrogant, which made Situ Xing and the others somewhat dissatisfied. In the end, his words really sounded like Wei Jiuduan was reprimanding them, which made them very uncomfortable. Chapter 185. Feeling the unfriendly gazes of the others, Wei Hanshan quickly shouted, "Chu Xiu. Don't misinterpret my words. In any case, you didn't solve the problem in your own territory and instead implicated the other inspectors. This is a problem of your ability. I will definitely go to Lord Wei Jiuduan and talk about this matter." At this time, Wei Jiuduan's voice suddenly came from behind Wei Hanshan. "All right, I heard it. You don't need to say anything, just take care of your own matters. You don't need to worry about other people's matters." Seeing Wei Jiuduan arrive, Wei Hanshan immediately calmed down. He didn't dare to say anything and obediently returned to his seat. Wei Jiuduan sat on the host's seat and said, "I'm sure all of you have heard about the massacre in Jian province and Shang province. This matter can't be blamed on you. This is because the villains who did this have a great background. They were the vassals of the former Kunlun devil cult, the remnants of the Ghost King sect." Other than Chu Xiu, who knew about the background of the Ghost King sect, it was the first time the others had heard of this matter. This caused their expressions to change slightly. In the past, the Guanzhong torture room had dealt with these Devil Dao villains and even killed a lot of them. However, the majority of the Devil Dao villains killed by the Guanzhong torture room were rogue cultivators or from small sections. Now that the Ghost King sect, a famous devil Dao sect from 1,000 years ago, was implicated. Everyone was shocked. Although the Ghost King sect was no longer a sect, only some of its remnants were still wandering in the Jianghu. Wei Jiuduan said, this time, the Ghost King sect's remnants were chased by the Sword King city's experts to the Guanzhong Pass. It just so happens that the Sword King city's people have also come. When the time comes, we will work together to eliminate the Ghost King sect's remnants. After saying that, Wei Jiuduan had his disciple, Ong Ling, invite the Sword King city's people over. When Chu Xiu heard this, a strange look flashed in his eyes. The Ghost King sect was actually forced to come here by the people of Sword King City. When did the two sides become enemies? Sword King City was one of the 5 great sword sects in the 5 swords dividing the world in the Jianghu song. It was located in the Western Desert and was also known as Western Desert Sword King City. There weren't many people in Sword King City, but those who were qualified to roam the world were all elites among their peers. In this generation, Sword King City even had 2 people on the Longhu list. It could be said that the city was extremely glorious. After a while, Yang Ling brought over a dozen warriors from Sword King City. These warriors all had very distinct characteristics. They wore large white robes and wrapped their heads with white headscarves. This was a common attire for the people of the Great Western Desert. The most eye-catching thing was that their swords were not carried on their backs, strapped to their waists, or placed in their secret space boxes. Instead, they were always holding them in their hands. It was said that the warriors of Sword King City had always been like this. They regarded the swords in their hands as their own arms. If they wanted to reach the realm of one with the sword, they wouldn't let go of their sword even when they were eating or sleeping. As soon as they entered, everyone could feel a powerful sharp intent coming from the Sword King City's cultivators. Even if their swords weren't unsheathed, the astonishing sword intent was cutting through space and exerted great pressure on everyone present. Chu Xiu and the others exchanged glances and frowned. This group of Sword King City's cultivators was too arrogant. Even the weakest among them was at the Xiantian realm, while the strongest had even reached the 5 Qis unification realm. It was very easy for cultivators at this level to restrain their imposing aura, yet these people were still putting on such airs. Who were they trying to show off their arrogance? Among the 5 great sword sects, Sword King City was indeed the strongest. It dominated the Western Desert. It was said that the Western Desert also had some small countries in the western regions. When Sword King City established itself there, those small countries would submit to it. The warriors of Sword King City could kill the kings of those small countries like slaughtering chickens. But no matter how overbearing they were, this was not the Western Desert. This was the Central Plains, Guanzhong, the Guanzhong torture room that belonged to Guanzhong. However, Wei Jiuduan was here, so he didn't say anything. Chu Xiu and the others also didn't say anything. In the end, Wei Jiuduan just frowned and didn't say anything. He just said to Chu Xiu and the others, "Let me introduce myself. This is an expert from Sword King City, the instructor of War Sword Hall, Flaming River Sword, Gu Lujiang." The leader of Sword King City's group was a cultivator in his 30s. He had a cold expression and held a crimson sword in his hand. He just nodded at Wei Jiuduan's words and didn't say anything. Everyone present raised their eyebrows. Although this fellow was arrogant, his background wasn't simple. Sword King City had 4 major sword halls. The War Sword Hall specialized in sword Dao killing techniques, the Sword Comprehension Hall specialized in the true essence of sword Dao, the Intent Sword Hall specialized in the selfless sword will, and the Form Sword Hall specialized in sword techniques. Among the 4 great sword halls, only the martial artists from the War Sword Hall were the most warlike. Their comprehensive combat strength was also the strongest. Moreover, although this Gu Lujiang wasn't famous in Jianghu, since he was the sword arts instructor of the War Sword Hall, his attainments in swordsmanship should be quite astonishing. Wei Jiuduan pointed to a young cultivator in the physical invulnerability realm and said, "This is a young hero from Sword King City, Wind and Cloud Sword, Lin Kaiyun. I heard that young hero Lin is ranked on the Longhu leaderboard. It just so happens that our Guanxi branch also has a young man ranked on the Longhu leaderboard. Speaking of which, it can be considered fate." Lin Kaiyun only looked to be in his 20s on the outside. His name sounded casual, and his looks were more handsome. However, in reality, there was a thick sharpness in his eyes. His expression was grave and stern, and one could tell that he wasn't someone to be trifled with. Hearing Wei Jiuduan say that the Guanzhong torture room also had someone ranked on the Longhu leaderboard, Lin Kaiyun couldn't help but frown and say, "Since when did the Guanzhong torture room have someone ranked on the Longhu leaderboard? Who is it?" Wei Jiuduan pointed at Chu Xiu and said with a smile, "It's my patrol inspector, Chu Xiu. He recently joined the Guanzhong torture room." After hearing Chu Xiu's name, Lin Kaiyun's eyes suddenly flashed with sharpness, as sharp and piercing as a sword intent. "You are Chu Xiu? The blood demon Chu Xiu ranked 18th on the Longhu leaderboard?" Chu Xiu said indifferently, "That's right." Lin Kaiyun wanted to say something, but Gu Jianglu, who was next to him, pulled him, causing Lin Kaiyun to swallow his words. He just said to Chu Xiu coldly, "If there's time, let's learn from each other." Chu Xiu raised his eyebrows and said, "If there's time, that's fine. Unfortunately, I'm the Guanxi Patrol Inspector, and I have a lot of things to do. I'm not as free as young hero Lin." This Lin Kaiyun had revealed such great enmity towards Chu Xiu in public, causing Chu Xiu to feel somewhat baffled. He had not provoked him, and this was even the first time he had met Lin Kaiyun. In the end, Lin Kaiyun was already hostile towards him. Could it be because of his ranking on the Longhu list? However, although the competition on the Longhu leaderboard was fierce, it shouldn't be like this the first time they met, right? In fact, Chu Xiu's guess was right. Lin Kaiyun was so hostile to him because of the Longhu leaderboard. At present, Lin Kaiyun was ranked 21st on the Longhu leaderboard. Before this, he was ranked 20th. It was only because of Chu Xiu's appearance not too long ago that he had jumped to 18th place, pushing everyone down a rank. On the Longhu leaderboard, the top 20 was a step. Chu Xiu's appearance was equivalent to pushing Lin Kaiyun down a ladder. Speaking of which, Lin Kaiyun's obsession with the Longhu leaderboard was because of the internal affairs of Sword King City. Sword King City had produced a large number of heroes of this generation. In fact, Lin Kaiyun's fame wasn't the greatest. When Sword King City was mentioned, everyone would only think of one name, the sword leader, Fang Qishao. The seventh young master Fang was not the seventh young master of the Fang family. The little he referred to was the little in the sense of how many. Therefore, this became the seventh young master Fang's catchphrase. Every time he introduced himself to others, he would say that his name was the little in the sense of how many. He started learning the sword at the age of 7 and spent 5 years learning all 4 major training halls. Even the sword instructors of the 4 halls had once said that they couldn't teach Fang Qishao's sword Dao. Aside from his low cultivation level, his understanding of the sword Dao was even higher than their sword instructors. He entered the pugilistic world at the age of 15 and challenged countless sword experts of the same level in 7 years. He had never tasted defeat, and his title of sword leader spread like wildfire. In his life, Fang Qishao had only been defeated by the Dragon Tiger Mountain's little celestial master, Zhang Chengzhen. However, that was because his cultivation level was lower. Moreover, it was a glorious defeat for Fang Qishao to be defeated by the talented little celestial master. In the years that followed, Fang Qishao was always ranked 3rd on the Longhu leaderboard. Therefore, Lin Kaiyun was in a more miserable state. It could be said that he had always been living in Fang Qishao's shadow. He was only a few years younger than Fang Qishao and had less experience in the pugilistic world. The first time he entered the Longhu leaderboard, he was only in the 50s. After that, he went into seclusion to cultivate to internal invulnerability. The next time he came out of seclusion, he finally made it to the 20th place. On the other hand, Feng Qi Xiao had already become famous in the pugilistic world. Even when he was defeated by the little celestial master, Zhang Chengzhen, he was still praised by the pugilistic world. Lin Kaiyun, who was unwilling to give up, went into seclusion again. This time, he only came out after cultivating to the physical invulnerability stage. In the end, before he could compete with his senior brother from the same sect, he was pushed down a position by Chu Xiu. It would be strange if he had a good expression. Therefore, when he saw Chu Xiu now, he looked as if Chu Xiu owed him a few thousand taels of purple gold. Wei Zhuduan felt that the atmosphere in the scene was a little cold. He couldn't help but cough twice and said, "All right, I won't say much. The people from the Ghost King sect dared to disturb my Guanzhong torture room. My Guanzhong torture room will not ignore this matter. My subordinates can cooperate with you, Mr. Gu. With the two of us working together, we can definitely dig out the Ghost King sect's evil demons in the shortest time possible and kill them all." Chapter 186. Just as Wei Zhuduan finished speaking, he was suddenly interrupted by Gu Jianglu. Looking at Wei Zhuduan, Gu Jianglu spoke in a deep voice, "Lord Wei, you seem to have misunderstood. My Sword King city isn't here to cooperate with your Guanzhong torture room. We are just here to inform you that my Sword King city is going to take action in Guanxi. Cooperation is impossible. My Sword King city has never had the habit of cooperating with others. If your Guanzhong torture room wants to intervene, then just follow behind us and assist us." Previously, no matter how arrogant Gu Jiangliu's group was, or how dissatisfied Chu Xiu's group was, Wei Zhuduan didn't say anything. But now, Gu Jianglu was a little too much. This was Guanzhong, and Gu Jianglu actually wanted the Guanzhong torture room's people to assist them. What was this? Did he not put the Guanzhong torture room in his eyes? Wei Zhuduan spoke with a gloomy expression, "Mr. Gu, don't forget, this is the Guanzhong torture room." Gu Jianglu spoke indifferently, "I know this is the Guanzhong torture room. If this wasn't the Guanzhong torture room, do you think my Sword King city's people would need to inform you in advance?" Gu Jiangliu's words were overbearing, but it was the truth. Chu Xiu had experienced this before. Back when he was being pursued by the Morgue Manor and the Northern Drifting Snow City, he came to the Azure Wave Sword sect's territory. As the Azure Wave Sword sect was too weak, the Morgue Manor and the Northern Drifting Snow City didn't put the Azure Wave Sword sect in their eyes. They didn't even inform the Azure Wave Sword sect. This also caused the three factions to be provoked by Chu Xiu's case and finally shed all pretenses of cordiality. With how overbearing the Sword King city was, Gu Jianglu was willing to inform Wei Zhuduan, the Guanxi penal officer. This was obviously giving him face. Moreover, in terms of individual strength, Gu Jianglu didn't put Wei Zhuduan in his eyes. Gu Jianglu looked young, only in his early 30s. In fact, he was indeed very young. His real age was only 40. Wei Zhuduan had cultivated for more than 100 years to reach the realm of the unity of man and nature, while Gu Jianglu had only used more than 20 years to reach the peak of the 5 qis collecting the origin. It was estimated that it wouldn't be long before the unity of man and nature was just around the corner. When facing Wei Zhuduan, he didn't have the slightest awe. Furthermore, even though Wei Zhuduan still had the cultivation of the unity of heaven and man realm, he was actually very old. If they were to really fight, it was not certain who would win. Chu Xiu and the others were looking at Wei Zhuduan. The Sword King city's people were so overbearing and unreasonable, but Wei Zhuduan didn't say anything. However, Chu Xiu and the others felt that it was a pity that Wei Zhuduan didn't say anything. He just suppressed the anger in his heart and said in a cold voice, "I can cooperate with your Sword King city, but your Sword King city should have some sense of propriety. If you disturb the order in the pass because of your actions, the people from the main hall will naturally come down to deal with you. Seeing Wei Jiuduan make such a concession in front of the Sword King City's warriors, Chu Xiu and the others were somewhat dissatisfied. Wei Jiuduan was too cowardly. In fact, Wei Jiuduan wasn't really a coward. He was afraid of the Sword King City's people. He just didn't want to cause trouble. He knew that he wouldn't be able to stay in the position of the disciplinary officer for many years. In that case, it was better to avoid trouble. He had a conflict with the Sword King City's people. Moreover, the Sword King City's people were famous for being domineering and overbearing in the pugilistic world. If they were to get entangled in a fight, it might cause a lot of trouble. Therefore, he would make a concession as long as it didn't affect his own interests. However, since he made a concession as the superior, Chu Xiu's subordinates naturally couldn't act out. They felt very sullen. Wei Jiuduan said to Yang Ling in a muffled voice, "During this time, you will follow the Sword King City's people. If they have any requests, pass them on to the inspectors. Try to cooperate with them as much as possible." After saying that, Wei Jiuduan turned around and left. Gu Jianglu didn't care. He just asked Yang Ling, who was next to him, where was the last time the Ghost King sect's people were seen. Yang Ling glanced at Chu Xiu and said, "It was in official Chu's Jianzhou prefecture." Gu Jianglu said lightly, "All right, let's go to Jianzhou prefecture now." Yang Ling walked to Chu Xiu's side and said with a smile, "Official Chu, since adoptive father wants us to cooperate with the Sword King City's people, we can only do so. Let's go with them." Chu Xiu frowned slightly. The Sword King City's people came, but they turned out to be people from the Guanzhong torture room. They actually cooperated with outsiders to act in their own territory. They were really cowards. However, since Wei Jiuduan said this, Chu Xiu naturally couldn't refute it. He just said lightly, "Since that's the case, then follow me." After arriving at the Jianzhou Prefecture's Inspector Hall, Chu Xiu said to the Sword King City's people, "We have already noticed the Ghost King sect's people's whereabouts. I also fought with them once, but the Ghost King sect's people's cultivation method is too evil, so they escaped." Hearing up to this point, Lin Kaiyun suddenly sneered and said, "What a joke. You actually let them escape even after finding them. Those people from the Ghost King sect are trash. My Sword King City's people chased them all over the world, yet you actually failed to catch them." Lin Kaiyun said that the Ghost King sect's people were trash, but if they couldn't catch the Ghost King sect's Chu Xiu, wouldn't they be even more trash? Upon hearing this, Chu Xiu's subordinates glared at the Sword King City's people. The Ghost Hand King sneered and said, "Official Chu went to catch a warrior in the Three-Flower Realm at one's prominence. What's so strange about them escaping? Also, if you people from the Sword King City are capable, you would have wiped out the Ghost King sect a long time ago. Why did you chase them all the way to Guanzhong?" Hearing the Ghost Hand King's words, Lin Kaiyun's eyes suddenly showed a hint of fierceness. He had a bad temper to begin with, and he had just come out of seclusion this time. He wanted to make a name for himself in the world and catch up to his senior brother. However, when he came out of seclusion, he found that his ranking had fallen instead of advancing. Chu Xiu had pushed him out of the top 20. He had been suppressing his anger. Now, even a Jianghu constable from the Guanzhong disciplinary hall dared to mock him. This made Lin Kaiyun's anger immediately surge. He snorted coldly and said, "Who do you think you are? Do you have the right to speak here?" As soon as he finished speaking, Lin Kaiyun flicked out a sharp sword finger, shooting directly at the Ghost Hand King's shoulder blade. He did not intend to kill, but if this extremely sharp sword finger were to hit the Ghost Hand King, one of his arms would probably be crippled. Chu Xiu stretched out his hand and turned it into a knife. The blood-refined divine gang suddenly burst out, shattering the sword finger. He said coldly, "This is Guanzhong, the Guanzhong of the Guanzhong torture room. What, the people of the Guanzhong torture room don't even have the right to speak here? Everyone says that the Sword King city is overbearing, but you people are still so overbearing in the Guangzhong area. Does your sect master know? I don't have the right to speak, but I don't know if Hall Master Guan has the right. Do you need me to report this matter to the headquarters? Lin Kaiyun still wanted to say something, but he was stopped by Gu Jianglu, who frowned and said, "Enough, stop fooling around. We came for the Ghost King sect this time." Some of the Ghost King sect's remnants were injured by Uncle Master's sky-burning sword Qi, so they can't escape too far. They can only recuperate in the Guangzhong area. We don't have time to waste, or else they might escape to somewhere after they recover. Lin Kaiyun heard this and snorted coldly, not saying anything. Seeing Lin Kaiyun's expression, Chu Xiu also sneered in his heart, not saying anything. No wonder Lin Kaiyun lived under the shadow of Fang Qishao all his life. This person was far inferior to Fang Qishao. They were both outstanding talents of the younger generation. It was normal to be suppressed by outsiders, but it was indeed a bit sullen to be suppressed by a fellow disciple. But some people could turn this kind of pressure into motivation. Obviously, Lin Kaiyun didn't. He just turned this pressure into anger and resentment. What great achievements could a person who couldn't even control the emotions in his heart achieve in the future? At least in the original plot, Chu Xiu had heard of the name, Sword Leader, Fang Qishao, but he had never heard of Lin Kaiyun's name. There were only two endings for this person in the future. Either he was killed halfway, or he would forever live under the shadow of Fang Qishao and be unknown. Gu Jianglu looked at Chu Xiu and said in a low voice, "Chu Xiu, Lord Wei said that as long as the Sword King city goes, the Guangzhong torture room should try their best to cooperate, and I won't make things difficult for you. This group of people from the Ghost King sect killed people in your Jianghu prefecture, and it will also affect your Guangzhong torture room. The sooner you get rid of these remnants of evil, the sooner you can be at ease. I don't care what you've done before, but now that the Sword King city's people are here, all you can do is cooperate. Now, transfer your subordinates to me. Listen to our command and cooperate with us to search the prefectures one by one. I don't believe that we can't find any traces of these people from the Ghost King sect." As soon as these words came out, even Du Guangzhong, who had a good temper, couldn't accept it. The Sword King city's people were simply conceited to the point of considering everyone else. When it came to searching for traces and investigating traces, the Jianghu constables from the Guangzhong torture room were naturally the most experienced. But now, the Sword King city's people excluded them and didn't listen to their opinions at all. They made them do odd jobs. This was simply insane. Du Guangzhong and the others also looked at Chu Xiu. No matter how arrogant the Sword King city's people were, they didn't have the final say in this place. At this time, Yang Ling walked to Chu Xiu's side and said in a low voice, "Official Chu, don't cause trouble. Don't forget foster father's instructions. Try to cooperate with the Sword King city's people and smoothly deal with the Ghost King sect. That's the right thing to do." Chu Xiu's expression was gloomy as he said, "Old Du, take some people and cooperate with them." After saying that, Chu Xiu turned around and left with the Ghost Hand Monarch and the others. Du Guangzhong and the others shook their heads helplessly. The higher the rank, the higher the rank. Chu Xiu's character was very strong, but what could they do when Wei Jiuduan didn't want to cause trouble? Chapter 187. In the inner hall of the patrol hall, the Ghost Hand Monarch and the others were looking at Chu Xiu's expression. Chu Xiu had a gloomy and angry expression when he was outside, but now that he was back in the inner hall, Chu Xiu was expressionless, only showing a thoughtful expression. After a long time, Chu Xiu suddenly looked up at the Ghost Hand Monarch and asked, "How much do you know about Sword King City?" The Ghost Hand Monarch was stunned for a moment, but he still replied, "I don't know much, most of it is hearsay." "Then, do you think Sword King City is a righteous sect with a strong sense of justice?" They can disregard their own interests for the sake of exterminating demons. The Ghost Hand Monarch shook his head and said, "It's true that Sword King City is a righteous sect, but it's absolutely not to this extent. How can there be any absolute good people in the current society? They were all people who wouldn't do anything without benefits. If everyone really disregarded their own personal interests for the sake of exterminating evil, then the Jianghu's demonic path would have been wiped out long ago. In fact, it can't be said that there are no such sects, but such stubborn sects won't be able to flourish and will most likely die prematurely." A smile appeared at the corner of Chu Xiu's mouth and he said, "If that's the case, then it's interesting. Don't you feel that Sword King City's actions are a bit strange?" The Ghost King sect was a Devil Dao sect that had completely declined and was on the verge of extinction. Although they had some relations with the Kunlun Devil cult, causing them to be cursed by everyone in the pugilistic world, they would at most exterminate the other party after they stepped into their territory. They were not like the Sword King City, who actually sent out their elite experts to pursue them for thousands of miles, as if they had an irreconcilable enmity with the Ghost King sect. But as far as I know, the two sides don't seem to have such deep enmity, right? The Ghost Hand Monarch nodded and said, "I haven't heard of this, but the Ghost King sect's people are all lunatics. They like to kill people to refine pills and nurture their own ghosts. What if they kill someone important in Sword King City?" Chu Xiu narrowed his eyes and said, "That's possible, but can you see any hatred in the eyes of Sword King City's cultivators?" "No, these Sword King City's cultivators want to hunt down the Ghost King sect's people. Their goal isn't revenge, nor is it to exterminate evil. It's as if they are here to complete a mission. This is very interesting." Ghost Hand Monarch scratched his head. He didn't think that far. Previously, he thought that Chu Xiu was going to attack Sword King City. After all, the Chu Xiu he knew wasn't the kind of person who would swallow a loss. The Yu clan of the Northern Mountains, which had been annihilated by Chu Xiu in the past, was proof of that. As long as they offended this person, it did not matter if they died sooner or later. It was only a matter of time. Chu Xiu waved his hand and said, "All right, all of you can leave. If Sword King City asks you to search, then do so. There's no need to disobey them. But if you really see the Ghost King sect's people, let Sword King City's people make the first move. Don't rush to your deaths like idiots." Ghost Hand Monarch and the others nodded. There was no benefit in doing so. Even if Chu Xiu didn't say anything, they wouldn't be stupid enough to throw away their lives. After the Ghost Hand King and the others left, Chu Xiu's eyes revealed a look of contemplation. He felt that there was something wrong with Sword King City's people. He was also searching for some information about Sword King City in his mind. Chu Xiu was confident in remembering some of the major events in the original plot, but he couldn't remember some of the minor details. During this time, apart from some major events related to Sword King City, the only time and place related to Sword King City was when they seemed to have obtained something related to the Kunlun Devil cult. It seemed to have caused some competition, but in the end, nothing came of it. Thinking of Ghost King sect's origin, Sword King City couldn't possibly have something related to the Kunlun Devil cult, right? Perhaps Sword King City didn't want others to know about it, so they sent their disciples to hunt down the Ghost King sect's people. Even if the other party hid in the Guanzhong torture room, Sword King City still wouldn't let them go. Moreover, judging from Sword King City's attitude, they didn't want to cooperate with Guanzhong torture room. Instead, they put themselves in the main position and only allowed the people from Guanzhong torture room to cooperate. Perhaps it wasn't because they were conceited, but because they didn't want Guanzhong torture room to interfere too deeply in this matter. They had to be the ones to capture and kill people. As for the things, they naturally had to be the ones to bring them back. Kunlun Devil Cult. Very interesting. Chu Xiu pinched his chin, his eyes flickering with an inexplicable light. In this life, he had already walked a completely different path from the original story. In the end, he could still encounter something related to the Kunlun demon sect. Could this be fate? However, Chu Xiu didn't care about this kind of thing. He was a very realistic person. As long as there were benefits, Chu Xiu wouldn't refuse them, regardless of whether it was a devil sect or a divine sect. But now, he still wanted to see how the people from Sword King's city would deal with it. Gu Jianglu and the others' methods weren't out of the expectations of the Guanzhong torture room's experts. Their methods were very crude. Basically, they searched small cities one by one. Moreover, they were led by Sword King's city's own people. They didn't give Du Guangzhong and the others any chance to command them. This caused Du Guangzhong and the others to curse inwardly. In the end, they simply gave up and let Sword King City's people do whatever they wanted. In the end, Sword King City's people went back and forth in Jian province for several days without finding any clues. However, the Ghost King sect's people once again exterminated them. This made the experts of Sword King City furious. At this time, Chu Xiu was sure that Sword King City's people had ulterior motives in hunting down the Ghost King sect's experts. If they simply wanted to exterminate the devil cult or take revenge, it would be very simple. Chu Xiu could rely on his own strength to find clues. Moreover, he had almost left one person behind. With the power of the entire Guanxi Punishment Hall, Chu Xiu could find all the Ghost King sect's people in less than 3 days and kill them all. As a result, Sword King City's people were in a very difficult situation. They didn't even have a trace of harvest. In Jian Province's Inspector's Council chamber, Gu Jianglu, who had been running all over Jian Province for several days without any results, directly found Chu Xiu and asked angrily, "Chu Xiu, did your people do this on purpose?" When looking for the remnants of the Ghost King sect, they were all listless and didn't work hard. "Is this how you cooperate with me?" Chu Xiu said lightly, "How else do you want me to cooperate with you, Mr. Gu? I only have less than 300 constables and constables under me. You are bringing them to search one place after another, that is treating the Ghost King sect people as idiots. Won't they run when they hear the news? Also, our Jianghu constables are not used like this. If you let them spread out and act on their own, I dare to guarantee, within 3 days they will be able to dig out the Ghost King sect people's whereabouts for you." Gu Jianglu suddenly frowned. He didn't trust the constables of Guanzhong torture room, so he brought them around as coolies. If he let these constables investigate, they might find something unusual about the Ghost King sect's warriors and report it to the headquarters of Guanzhong torture room, then his efforts would be in vain. Sword King City was indeed not afraid of the Guanzhong torture room, but this was Guanzhong, a place that belonged to the Guanzhong torture room. He might be overbearing in front of Wei Jiuduan, but if he dared to act like this in front of Guan Siyu, even if Guan Siyu crippled him on the spot, the people of Sword King City wouldn't be able to say anything. He didn't even know the difference between superiors and inferiors, so he deserved to die. Just as Gu Jianglu was in a dilemma, Wei Hanzhan suddenly walked in and laughed. "Mr. Gu, are you in trouble? I have an idea that can allow Mr. Gu to quickly dig out the remnants of the Ghost King sect." Chu Xiu looked at Wei Hanzhan coldly and said, "Wei Hanzhan, what are you doing here? Jianzhou Prefecture has nothing to do with you." Wei Hanzhan chuckled and said, "Although the Jianzhou Prefecture is your territory, it also belongs to the Guanzhong Disciplinary Hall. What, a dignified patrol like me doesn't even have the right to enter this place?" Gu Jianglu could naturally hear the conflict between Wei Hanzhan and Chu Xiu. But he couldn't be bothered to care about it now. He looked at Wei Hanzhan and said, "You just said you have an idea. What is it?" Wei Hanzhan cupped his hands and said with a smile, "Actually, it's not a good idea. It's just a very simple trick. Most of the Jianzhou Prefecture is plains, so the Ghost King sect can't hide outside. They can only hide in the city. The more people there are, the safer they are. So as long as we can seal all the cities in Jianzhou Prefecture at the same time until we find traces of the other party, it will be enough. There are so many martial arts forces in the small cities in Jianzhou Prefecture, and they can all cooperate with you in Sword King City. After Wei Hanshan said this, Gu Jianglu and the others nodded, feeling that what he said made some sense. But the expressions of Du Guangzhong and the others suddenly changed. This Wei Hanshan was very sinister. This move of his had tricked all the martial arts forces in the Jianzhou prefecture, as well as Chu Xiu. What did Jianzhou prefecture rely on to make money now? Of course it was the smuggling business. Although there were fewer merchants coming and going because of the Ghost King sect, there were still a lot of people. But if the city was sealed, people from the outside could not get in, and people inside could not get out. At that time, people would be in a panic, and who would be willing to come to Jianzhou prefecture to do business? Even if the people from the Ghost King sect were eventually found and successfully eliminated, the Jianzhou government's actions would still damage the reputation of the Jianzhou government. It could be imagined that in the future, the number of merchants that would come to the Jianzhou government would definitely decrease by a large amount. Those martial arts factions would earn less, and naturally, Chu Xiu would earn less. You're tuning in to the Unparalleled SwordWill YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.